Welcome to Uniquely Qualified. I'm your friend and host, Liz Ficken, and I'm so glad you're here. Uniquely Qualified is a podcast that empowers guests to share their experience, strength, and hope in overcoming challenges in the spirit of mutual healing. We hope that you'll leave feeling more aware, connected, and supported in navigating the human experience. Today, I'm joined by the amazing Kate, whose story of navigating the unexpected onset of Bell's palsy at 35 weeks pregnant is a testament to resiliency, medical self advocacy, and doing the inner work to recover emotionally from really hard things. Kate lives in the northern panhandle of West Virginia with her husband Taylor, 3 and 2-year-old sons Paige and Adrian, and 7-year-old red lab Chili. Originally from Michigan, Kate attended Hillsdale College, where she earned her Bachelor of Arts in Politics and then moved to DC to work on Capitol Hill. After that, she moved back to the Midwest, living in Chicago for a year, where she earned her yoga teacher certificate. Let me say that again, where she earned her yoga teacher training certificate and then took some time off to travel solo in Southeast Asia, ultimately moving back to Michigan to work at Lululemon for a time before taking a leap of faith to move to West Virginia to be with her now husband. In her free time, Kate loves to work out, read, connect with friends and family, and be the best mom she can be to her babies. Kate, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, thank you. So, Kate, how are you uniquely qualified?
I am uniquely qualified to speak about my experience with Bell's palsy, something I had never heard of, really until it happened to me. So that's how I'm uniquely qualified and just experiencing it in my body and my
Yeah.
life and how I adjusted.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And thank you for your willingness to be vulnerable and talk about this. The first time we chatted on the phone, I and to now I know that you've continued processing this journey. And I wanted to make sure that at the top of the episode I said that I'm really honored to see you continue your healing journey and equally honored that you're willing to chat with us and share your story today. So thank you.
Thank you for
Mm-hmm.
doing this beautiful work.
Oh, thank you. It's truly my honor. Before we get into your story, I did want to outline some facts about Bell's palsy for our listeners. This is all sourced from the Mayo Clinic. If anybody is going to fact check, it's all there. So, according to the Mayo Clinic, Bell's palsy is a condition that causes sudden weakness in the muscles on one side of the face. Often, the weakness is short term and improves over weeks. The weakness makes half of the face appear to droop. Smiles are one sided, and the eye on the affected side is hard to close. Bell's palsy also is known as acute peripheral facial palsy of unknown cause. It can occur at any age. The exact cause is not known. Expert thinks, excuse me, Experts think it's caused by swelling and irritation of the nerve that controls the muscles on one side of the face. Bell's palsy could also be caused by a reaction that occurs after a viral infection. Symptoms usually start to improve within a few weeks, with complete recovery in about 6 months. A number of people continue to have Bell's palsy symptoms for the rest of their lives. Rarely, Bell's palsy occurs more than once. As of right now, recording in March of 2025, there is no known cure for Bell's palsy. And I just wanted to share some famous people who we all may or may not have heard of that have had it or currently have Bell's palsy. Um, and we'll get into how like the more you know about stuff like this, the more you start seeing it just kind of in the culture. So Allen Ginsberg, American beat poet, he had it. Andrew Lloyd Webber, who is British composer of musicals such as Phantom of the Opera, Jesus Christ Superstar, Cats, and many more. Angelina Jolie, American actress. George Clooney, American actor. Kim Mully, Louisiana State University's women's basketball coach. Justin Bieber, American actor slash songwriter singer. Pierce Brosnan, Irish actor, film producer, and environmentalist. Roseanne Barr, American actress. And for public TV people out there like me and my family, Nancy Zeman, American television host of the show Sewing with Nancy. Kate, is there anything you'd like to add to that summary?
No, I don't think really, other than, like you kind of said, the Bell's palsy symptoms can last
Mm-hmm.
throughout the rest of your life. Um, and that is what I am currently dealing with. So I don't
Yeah.
technically have Bell's palsy at this current moment. Bell's palsy is the initial paralysis of the face, or the half of the face. So mine was my right side of my face.
Mhm.
So anything on my right side literally completely paralyzed, did not
Yeah.
move an inch, an iota, no matter what I told my face to do. It just was completely frozen.
Mhm.
But no, like, kind of like you said, it was a really good summary, and it's crazy thinking about not all of the celebrities, but it kind of helps liken it more if you like know the celebrity and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that they had it. And
Exactly.
a lot of people recover very well when they have probably better access to certain types of treatments, like I would imagine a celebrity would. But me
Right.
living in West Virginia, and I'm not as close to some specialty people that they probably would be. So it's
That's a
really
really
just
yeah.
wild.
I'm so glad you said that because that is one of the things that is a tenet of this podcast is it's everyday people just using the resources around them to navigate really hard things. And you're right, somebody like Justin Bieber, George Clooney, Angelina Jolie, they're going to have access to a totally different level of
Mm-hmm.
resource than
Mm-hmm.
the standard American. So I'm so glad that you said that.
Mm-hmm. And another thing too, because for them, like, their image is their job, right? That is
Right.
not my job. My job is nothing to do with so
Mm-hmm.
I think about that a lot. Like those people who, like, singers,
Mm-hmm.
people that play in like a band, an instrument that you need your mouth for. It's just like those are the types of people who it's literally like their life depends on it. Whereas mine, I wouldn't say that it did, but mentally for me, it seemed like it. Um,
Yes.
because it was, it was devastating.
Yeah.
So,
And not to spend too much of our time here, but there were people on the list that were one was a member of Def Leppard, so professional
mm-hmm,
musician.
mm-hmm,
Don't know anything about the story, but like you were saying, like, wow, you probably need
right.
it's part of
Yes.
your image and your career. There were
Yeah.
a couple where I was like, ooh, if I had more time, I would dig into this. Professional
Mhm.
athletes who like in a
Mhm.
playoff game like
Right?
a member of the Jets who like could not close his eye during a
Yeah.
playoff game.
Yep.
And I'm just thinking, I never have
No,
thought
because,
about
like, and
this
that's
before.
the thing, like, that I kind of, again, we'll probably get into it later, but it's just like the main thing for me was like the everyday things that I
Yeah,
took advantage, quote unquote, using air quotes here for you listening, took advantage of, like being able to blink, being able to smile, being able to raise an
yeah,
eyebrow, being able to do the simplest things. I could all of a sudden, with absolutely no warning, not do anymore.
yeah.
So, being a professional athlete, you have to use your eyes. Like, if you can't blink your eye, there's oils that your eye produces to keep it lubricated, to keep your vision clear. And if your eye cannot completely close, those do not get produced. So you're
Hmm.
having to put um, eye drops in constantly. You have to wear an eye patch. Just the amount of, like, insane things that you have to go through, and you're not prepared for any of it, right? Like, it
Hmm.
just comes out of nowhere. And
Hmm.
being an everyday person, it's awful. And with the limited resources that I had, like you said, even, it doesn't matter who it happens to. It's,
Yeah,
just like anything that happens to anybody, it's devastating. It comes
yeah.
on so suddenly like that. It's
Hmm.
devastating to you because that's a complete disruption of your experience and your who you are every single day and who you thought you were and who you were going to work to be. It's completely thrown off by this, completely.
Hmm. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm eager to get into, I don't want to like show our hand about some
Right,
of the parts of
right.
your story, but where I'm
We'll get there. We'll get
like
there.
there's some stuff that you went through
Yeah,
that was really intense
yeah.
with the onset of the condition.
Hmm.
I also just want to cue our listeners and people who are tuning in and watching us with their eyes that this is the second recording where we're actually using video, and I just really wanted to make sure that I gave Kate additional kudos because when I gave her the option, she was like, I want people to see my face, and as I'm gesturing I want people to understand, and so that's just the option is to to have it just be in audio, and that's great. Like that
Mhm.
is, I empower every guest to make that choice, but I want to make sure that Kate, you know how much I appreciate that, and that that you're helping us be educated by being willing to use like an additional medium.
Yep. It's the name of the
Awesome.
game is education. So I'm
That's right.
happy to do it.
Well, thank you.
Mhm.
So let's start a little bit before the condition. Let's talk about your family. I would love to know how you met your husband Taylor and how this Midwestern girl who travels the world goes from living in a metropolis like Chicago to the panhandle of West Virginia.
It's a good one. So I was actually born in Missouri. I'm not going to start from
Oh.
birth, but I was born in Missouri. My dad is a doctor and he
Hmm.
was in the Navy. So we moved around quite a bit when I was a kid. My mom
Okay.
was a nurse. They met at the hospital.
Cute.
So I was born in Columbia, Missouri, and then we moved to Florida. So then we moved to Michigan, which is where both my parents are from Michigan. So they knew they were going to end up there
Ah,
eventually.
okay.
So I grew up in Michigan from age, what, 3 on. So ever
Hmm.
since I can remember, I've been from there. And I went to college there. But when I was a senior in high school, I went on a spring break with my friends, as everyone does for the most part. If
Hmm.
you're fortunate enough and want to do that, we went to Mexico.
Hmm.
And my husband was there. He was sitting down like a couple stools from me at the beach bar. He like specifically remembers this. He tells me it all the time, which is hilarious, and I love him because he remembers to a T, where we were, what we were doing, what I was wearing, everything. So
Adorable.
we start talking, and he says he's from West Virginia, and the reason why we kept talking was because obviously I found him attractive. I was 18, I was in Mexico, I was having a good time.
Hmm.
And he said he's from West Virginia. And my dad's best friend from medical school lives in Morgantown, West Virginia.
Oh, okay.
She's from Michigan. So I said, oh my gosh, my aunt and uncle live in Morgantown. So we kind of started going from there. We had that, thread in common, 6 degrees of separation, what have you. So we start
Hmm.
talking, and then we found each other on or MySpace, Facebook. I don't remember, one of the
Oh,
social media
yeah.
platforms. This was in 2008, just to go back far enough. So this was in spring of 2008. We met and found each other on MySpace. We would stay up so late, AIM chatting
Yes.
and just talking and talking and talking. And then we both went to college. Like, I went to college in Michigan. He went to West Virginia University. We just were always kind of in contact. We were always in contact. And it was mostly initiated by him. I have to admit that.
I love
Even though he
that.
always says that it's the other way around.
Mm.
But we were always in contact. Like we went to college, we, graduated. I moved to DC. He moved to Virginia Beach, I believe. And then he moved to Philly. I moved to Chicago. We were just all over the place.
Hmm.
And then 2016, we had seen each other a few times. My sister actually went to West Virginia University for a semester in 2010 or 11. So we saw each other then. I went down and visited her, saw him. And then 2016, he was like, all right, can I please take you out on a date? I'm like, yes, you can. So he drives up to Michigan and gets a hotel, takes me on a date. I was living in Ann Arbor working at Lululemon. And then we started dating in January of 2017. And he couldn't move out of West Virginia because of his job. He's an
Mm.
insurance agent, so his book of business is here. He cannot move because he's built it up like through
Yeah,
blood, sweat, and tears. He has done such
absolutely.
an amazing job. He's so good at his job,
Mm.
and he has put his whole heart and everything into this business. So then when we decided we were going to get more serious, I decided to move down here, and a lot of people were like, "What you said, what?" So I
Yeah.
said, you know what? I have lived and I have traveled and I've done so many things. I'm almost 30. Like West Virginia is a beautiful, beautiful state.
You're
Some
right.
seriously wonderful people.
Hmm.
I'm not that far from Michigan, so I know a lot of people probably don't know the geography of West Virginia, but it's actually shaped like this. Fun fact.
Ah.
Yes. So we live in the very, very, so we're right between Ohio and Pennsylvania. So we are
Oh.
literally like an hour from Pittsburgh and then about 2 hours from Columbus. So going up
Oh,
to
yeah.
Michigan is like a 5 to 6 hour drive. So it's not
That's so manageable.
yeah, it's not too
Yeah.
bad. But if we lived in like the southern panhandle, then it would be a huge drive. But when I tell people I'm there, they're like, oh my gosh, how long does it take you to get to your parents? I'm like, oh, 6 hours. They're like, seriously? So yeah, I moved on here in
Yeah.
2017 and I've been here ever since. So it's been 8 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, I have heard that West Virginia is really
It
beautiful.
is. It truly, truly is. It is. It's something that I'm not used to it. It's mountainous. Like you live on the Pacific Northwest. Like
Yeah.
it's the I Michigan's flat. It is so
Right.
flat. Like
Right.
there's lakes in Michigan. Of course I love Michigan, the Upper Peninsula. Love going up
Hmm.
north, but West Virginia is just it's just stunning.
Mm.
Truly, it really is. Even in the winter, which is
Yeah.
great.
Well, it sounds like a really great place to raise your
Yes.
family, and
Yes.
it's bonus that it's so beautiful.
I
I love all of.
know. I know.
Yeah.
So yeah, my husband and I have been married for almost 6. Our anniversary is in about 2 weeks on the 30th, or 3 weeks or so. So
Oh, happy
6 years.
early anniversary.
Thank you. We decided to get married in Michigan in March, which was questionable at best, but it ended up being fine. So
A little bit chilly still.
just a little, or some drizzle, some possible snow, but we made it through.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
So you get married
Yep.
and then you have your first son. What
hmm
what year is he born?
He was born October of 2021. So right
October
after COVID.
2021. Okay, yeah.
Not right after, but close enough.
Yeah, that no, I
After.
was thinking about 2021 like here in the Pacific Northwest, and I know it was different all over the country. Restrictions were just starting to come up then.
Yes.
Like we were still
Yes.
masking indoors a lot of the
hmm
time, so I feel like that cusps into
Yep.
COVID era for a lot of us.
Yes. Yep.
So he's born, your first time mom. Walk us through having your first son and then getting pregnant with your second son because it's during that second pregnancy
Yes,
where
it
this event
is.
happens.
Correct.
Hmm.
So yes, I have my oldest Paige. He is I was born in October of 2021. We were living in our first house that we lived in together at that point, but we had already
Hmm.
purchased the current house that we live in. So just the timeline there. So we purchased our house that we currently live in when I was 8 months pregnant with our oldest in August of 2021.
Okay.
And we renovated the entire house, like it from bottom, everything. So it took over a year for the renovations. So we didn't
Hmm.
end up um we had bought this house thinking like, oh, great, we'll be able to move in with our newborn. We had no plans of having a second one
Hmm.
that soon. And you know how the birds and the bees work. Apparently, we forgot. So we got pregnant with our youngest, our second baby in May of 2022. So I was like, okay, we actually have to move into this house. Like I was
Hmm.
starting to get stressed.
Yeah.
And it's not our contractor's fault. It wasn't anybody. It was just like the timing of everything. It was nobody's fault. It just like, that was at the height of like when wood was super expensive and like labor
Yes,
materials and everything was just skyrocketing, and we were just scrambling to
totally.
get into this house. So we I'm like, Christmas 2022 comes and goes, and our contractor says, okay, I can get you in, right after the new year. So we are okay. That's great. So then we're into 2023, and I am having some preeclamptic symptoms. So I had my blood pressure was creeping up slowly.
Hmm.
Wonder why. And so my doctor is like monitoring me. My dad's best friend from growing up is an OBGYN. So I'm talking to him at random points. He's a high risk OB.
Hmm.
And so I'm talking to him. He's like, how's your blood pressure today? Everybody was just checking on me. I was going in pretty frequently for to see my OBGYN at that point. And I remember that we moved in January 5th. So I don't
Hmm.
know if I'm jumping too far for you here,
No,
but
you're doing
there's
great. Yeah.
nothing really that happened in between. We got pregnant with him. We knew we had to move in because we literally had no more space.
Yeah.
We had a 2 bedroom apartment house
Hmm.
and nowhere else to put another baby. So,
Yeah. And it
uh,
sounds like it's also like a nesting thing for you
uh-huh.
too, where you're like,
Yeah.
nope, I'm nesting. I need a nest in
Yes.
the home where I will be bringing
Yes.
my baby home
Yes.
to.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay.
so I was working at the time. So our oldest was in daycare and I was
Mhm.
working. My husband, I was the office manager at my husband's office. So we worked together. We worked together quite a bit. He was, obviously I was very pregnant. I was actually due in February. I was due February 12th or February 5th. I was due February 5th.
Mhm.
So January 5th comes around and I'm like, we are not moved into this house yet.
Mhm.
And I was so stressed. So my dad calls me and he's like, I'm going to send your mom down because you need help. Um,
Yeah.
you need help with Paige. His daycare was down the street. That wasn't really an issue, but he was like, I know you need some help. So he
Yeah.
sends my mom down. My mom comes down January second, third, I don't know, something like that.
Mhm.
From Michigan, she drives down. She's here at the new house. She's unpacking everything for me because my dad was like, I do not want you like lifting any, you know how dads are. He's
Yeah.
like, I don't want you lifting anything. And obviously, he knew my pregnancy was leaning towards high risk. So he sends my mom
Right.
down basically to do all of my manual labor, which was so wonderful and helpful.
That's so nice.
So she helps me organize everything. Taylor's my husband's at work. He comes home and like helps her unpack stuff. I just felt so like guilty because I'm like, I want to help. I know where this should go. I can do it. Like I can totally do it.
Yeah.
And you're like you said, I was nesting. So I'm sitting there just like my eye was twitching, which is funny because now it actually does involuntarily all the time.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yes, so I'll talk about that later. But I was
Uh-huh.
just sitting here just like I want to help. So
Mhm.
I'm helping. And my mom keeps saying, Kate, you have to stop. Like, I'll just let me do it. I'm like, nope, it's fine. We have to get it done, mom. This baby's gonna come sooner. I know it. And she's like, okay, fine. So January 6th was a Friday, I believe. And January 6th, not the
Yeah.
one we all remember,
Yeah.
but
Different one.
yeah, 2 years later.
Mhm.
So, my husband was doing his office Christmas party that day, and I was going to go because I was the office manager at the time. So they were supposed to go up to Pittsburgh and go out to a really nice dinner. He always does a really nice Christmas party for everyone. And he had called me that day, and he's like, "Do you still feel okay? Do you want to go?" And I was like, "Honestly, I don't feel like it.
Mhm.
I just don't feel good. Something just doesn't feel right." And he's like, okay, like, is the baby, I'm like, no, it's not the baby. It's just me. I just don't, something feels off. And he's like, all right, well,
Yeah.
is it okay if I go? I was like, yeah, my mom's here. It's fine. Paige will be
Mhm.
fine. My mom can handle him. So he comes home, shows everybody the new house. They all leave. Everyone's like, I hope you're feeling better. I'm like, thanks. And all throughout that day, I just remember I used to wear contacts constantly. It's like I really wore my glasses. And I just remember being like, my right eye is bugging me so bad. I must have a torn
Mm.
contact because that's what it feels like. I don't use, do you wear contacts?
I don't, but I
Okay.
know the feeling of like when you get something in your eye and you're
Yes.
like can't
It just
quite
felt
get it
like I
out.
couldn't, like, it just felt like an ache in my eye. And it was the
Mm.
weirdest thing. I kept
Mhm.
going into the whatever bathroom that we had that had a mirror at the time, which was like maybe one bathroom because we had just moved
Mhm.
in.
Mhm.
And I remember taking my contacts out and I put my glasses on and it wouldn't go away. And I was like, what is going on? And I just went up to my mom and I was like, Mom, does my face, like, does something weird, something
Yeah.
wrong with my face? And of course, she's my mom. So she's like, no, you look fine. What are you talking about?
Yeah. And you're
And I
very
was like,
pregnant too, where it's like, "You're
yeah.
no,
Yeah. So she was
you're
like, I
fine."
feel like you're putting me between a rock and a hard place answering this question right now.
Yeah.
So she's like, no, you look okay, and she kept taking, she was a nurse. So she kept insisting we take my blood pressure and they had get my OBGYN had given me a blood pressure cuff. So she was like,
Mhm.
let's just take your blood pressure. Why don't you go in your room and wait until Taylor gets home and see what
Mhm.
he thinks? And I'm like, okay, that's weird. So I go in there. I just knew something was wrong. I like pulled up my
Mhm.
laptop because we didn't have any TVs yet. I pulled up my laptop. I specifically remember telling myself, I want to watch something that is going to make me laugh. So I turned on
Mhm.
New Girl because
Yes.
obviously,
Such a feel good one.
yeah.
Yes.
And I'm trying to distract myself. And I just felt like something was wrong with my lip. Like it just felt like it
Mm.
was just like I was trying to drink out of my whichever Stanley cup I had at the time. And I just remember being like, why? Like I can't seal my lip.
Mhm.
So Taylor comes home. He's exhausted. He had worked all day, drove everybody to Pittsburgh, brought everybody back, which is an hour ish, like I said earlier. He comes into our room and he looks at me and he's like, hey, how are you feeling? And I looked at him and I said, does my face look weird to you? Like, I didn't even say hi. I just said, does my face look weird? And he looks at me and
Uh-huh.
he's like, can you smile? And I smiled and it literally was like
Yeah.
completely drooped. And he's like, no, your face does not look okay. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And so he pulls up his phone because, like I said, we barely had any mirrors. He pulls up his phone because I was just trying to avoid. Like that's how sometimes I am when something happens. Like I just like avoid thinking about it, which is not healthy. And my therapist and I are working on that. But I just remember him saying, no, babe, like something's wrong with your face. And of course, he's trying not to freak me out because of my blood pressure. There's just a whole lot of things going on. So he
Yeah.
tries to call. It was about 10:30 when he got home. So it's late. So he calls
Yeah.
his friend who was our PCP and he doesn't answer because it's 10:30. I think no, he didn't have, his wife might have just had a baby. So he didn't answer. He's like, I
Mm,
didn't expect him to answer. That's fine. So he calls a friend of his who's an oral surgeon and he answers right away. And he's like, Taylor, why are you calling me so late? Is everything okay? And so Taylor starts describing and his friend was like, I think it sounds like Bell's palsy. You guys need to go to the hospital like right now.
okay. Wow. Okay.
So he's like, you should probably call the on-call doctor at Kate's, OBGYN. But I'm pretty sure they're going to make you go in. And if it is Bell's palsy, you have to go to the ER like 10 minutes ago. So we
Yeah.
call the on-call OBGYN. They call me right back because they must have flagged my chart because of my issues. And they
Hmm.
were like, yeah, you need to come in. We have to rule out a stroke. You might have to go. And he's giving me the worst case scenarios. If it's a stroke, he's like, it doesn't sound like it is because you're talking. And
Hmm.
like he's asking my husband some questions. How's she acting? They were going to have to either induce me or do a C-section because they were like, if something's going on, we have to get the baby out, you know,
Yeah. Right.
of course.
Right.
So I'm
Hmm.
sitting there just trying not to panic because there's nothing
Yeah.
I had heard of this. Our neighbor down the street, Michael, had Bell's palsy very suddenly as well. It came on for him, I want to say right after COVID started or
Hmm.
something like that. I don't remember, but I remember his wife calling us and saying, hey, Michael's got Bell's palsy. I was like, what's that? And
Hmm.
then I remembered that when my aunt, so she's not blood relative, but my uncle's wife was pregnant with my cousin. She had Bell's palsy, and that was a number of years ago. But you never would have known it because she somehow fully recovered from it,
Yeah.
which is really interesting. So then it's just jogging my memory of like other people that I might have crossed paths with in my life, and
Hmm.
so the on-call doctor is like, you have to come in. We need to check you out. And my doctor's in Pittsburgh. So my husband's like, okay, I'm driving back to Pittsburgh. And it was almost midnight at this point.
Oh,
So we
wow.
go wake up my mom. We tell her, and she looks at my face and she's like, it did not look like that when you went to your room.
Okay.
Yeah, you need to go to the hospital. And
Okay.
so she calls my dad. He starts freaking out because,
Hmm.
he's a doctor. She's like, I want to call your dad and tell him.
Yeah.
So we go to the hospital and we sit in the waiting room for like, I remember longer than I thought we should have. I was like, this is really weird. There's no one else here. What's going on? And the nurse comes out to get me to do my intake. And she takes one look at me and goes, oh, it's just Bell's palsy. You'll be fine. And I
Oh,
go, hmm, okay. And I don't I just remember thinking like, I feel like she's wrong. Like
okay.
not about the diagnosis, about the fact that she was just acting like it was nothing. Cause I had by this
Yeah.
time looked in the mirror and done Googling on our hour drive to the hospital. Like,
Hmm.
I don't think it's like should be spoken about as lightly as she's making it seem like. She's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I've seen it before. You just have to take some steroids and you'll be fine. I'm like, okay. And
Mm,
obviously those are okay to take while you're pregnant. She's like, oh yeah, yeah, you'll be fine. So I go
mm.
back and see the ER doctor. He says the same thing she does. He's like, we don't know what causes this. He checks me out for a stroke, I'm not having a stroke. And they give me the first dose of the meds and the steroids to the pharmacy because that's the first thing that they do so it's the cranial nerve that collapses. And I think you sort of talked about this in the beginning, but it's
Yeah.
your cranial nerve that starts up by your forehead and then it
Hmm.
wraps down around behind your ear and then goes down it like branches out right here on your
Okay.
cheek. And so that's where all these muscles and nerves that like it fires to shoot, like tell your eyebrow to lift or to tell your eye to blink or to tell your mouth to smile, right?
Yeah.
So they basically what happens is from my non-medical term understanding
Yes.
is that your cranial nerve is very sensitive, I guess. So if you have any sort of virus laying dormant in your body, which 90% of the population does, according to my research.
Yeah.
And it can get, if it gets triggered, this said virus gets triggered by anything, stress, which stress is going to kill us all. And so it can be triggered by stress or pregnancy, because when you're pregnant, your immune system is suppressed. It's trying to protect the
Right.
baby. So again,
Yes.
this is what I learned a little bit later on, but
Hmm.
excuse me, just a little bit sort of high level, but so anyway, so your cranial nerve completely collapses, which shuts off all access to your facial nerves on that specific side.
Wow.
So it, like your face, like I would joke at the beginning, because that's kind of how I deal with things sometimes. I would joke that I
Yeah.
looked like Quasimodo,
Mm.
which no one found funny except for me. Because I was like, if you're not laughing, you're crying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they explain this very low level to me. They're like, it's your cranial nerve. It collapsed. It's very common in pregnancy. Some people actually call it Bell's palsy of pregnancy. Like that is a
Oh.
diagnosis that some ENTs, the ear, nose, and throat doctors, will give you. Like that's what my ENT that I eventually saw diagnosed me with, Bell's palsy
Oh,
of
okay.
pregnancy, which I'd never heard of,
Interesting.
which happened with my aunt, like I said, when she was pregnant with my cousin.
Yeah.
So they sent me home, and just basically were like, good luck. And I'm like,
Wow.
oh, cool. So it'll be fine. Everything's going to be fine. And I remember going home. We got home at like 3 a.m., I think. And my mom obviously let us sleep in. She took care of our oldest. We got up, and my husband went to the pharmacy and picked up my prescription. And we just tried, I
Yeah.
don't even know. Like it's so crazy thinking about it, but it's because it's not that I like blacked it out. Obviously, I was very much there. I was aware, but it's
Yeah.
just so many things happened at one time when you're just
Yeah.
not expecting them. It's like your brain's just trying to catch up.
Oh, for
And, that happens with, I mean, everything that comes as a surprise. You're not expecting it. That's why it's a surprise.
yeah.
So my husband goes to work, or no, it was a Saturday. So we were all home, and we were all just kind of like, nobody was really saying anything. And I
Hmm.
was like, so this sucks.
Yeah.
Because I had actually somehow gotten some rest, which is crazy because normally if something like stresses me out, I have trouble sleeping, and I was pregnant. I was so uncomfortable. So I
Yeah.
managed to get some sleep, and I woke up and just remember looking in the mirror and being like, what is this? So I think I spent like the majority of that day just on Google. Because
Hmm.
like I reached out to
Yeah.
our friend Michael that lives down the street about it. And he's like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened to you too. He's telling me what he did, and all these things that everyone says you have to do, but there's not a specific regimen for this. There's
Hmm.
not when if you have a lump, you go to a doctor, they do a biopsy. They then test the biopsy or the cells. They tell you, oh my gosh, you have, some cancer or illness. They send you to a specific place, and there's a protocol. For this,
Right.
there was not that. This does
Hmm.
not require or have any that I was able to find. Again, I had a toddler, I was pregnant, I didn't
Right.
have all the time in the world to just sit around and try to figure this out. Because the
Yeah.
only thing that anybody on Google or anywhere was saying, you just have to wait. You just have to wait. The
Mm.
nerve has to heal itself, which I get that. I'm very aware of how my body works. Like I said, I was pregnant for
Yeah.
the second time. I was very in tune with how my body was working, but
Yeah.
waiting is not something that I'm good at.
Hmm.
And especially with something so unknown like this, I'm like, okay, wait, like, what do you mean wait? There's nothing I can do in the meantime. And then you have the other side of it where if you do too much, it can make it worse. And I'm
Oh,
like, or not, sorry, it can't, let me rephrase that. It can't make it worse, but it could be worse for you down the road. If you try to
long
force,
term.
yes, if you try
Hmm.
to force a paralyzed muscle to work, it can further, not damage it, but it can cause some issues down the road,
Yeah.
which then would, lead me into discovering about what's called synkinesis, which I can explain to you once I'll move along here a little bit. So
Okay.
January 6th happened, that we wake up on the 7th. I had to call my OB. I'm like, hey, this just happened. She's like, okay, you need to come in this week. Cause I think by that point I was going in weekly anyway.
Yeah.
Cause you always do for the last month of your pregnancy, you're going, well, weekly.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went in, she's like, she checks me out, she checks out the baby. She's like, baby's fine. Which I had already known because they checked him at the ER too, obviously.
Good.
So yeah, but other thing that I do remember is my mom had to drive me everywhere. So she literally couldn't leave because
Oh.
I could not blink my eye at all. So I like,
Oh, wow.
it's not that I couldn't see, but I couldn't see because
Yeah.
if you don't have lubrication of your eye, you cannot see. Like that is what anybody who puts in contacts knows, like your eyes are always lubricated no matter what. So I couldn't dry myself anywhere. I had to learn, my husband had to go get me like eye patches. Like, so I had to wear an eye
Mm-hmm.
patch because the
Mm-hmm.
sun, I couldn't like squint. So if it was really sunny, I couldn't protect my eye from the sun.
Oh, yeah. Ooh,
So, and then if it was windy, I couldn't protect my eye from the wind by blinking or closing my eye. So I would have to wear an
right.
eye patch just to go outside,
Yeah.
and or I'd have to tape like a piece of gauze over top of it. But that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
stop your brain from trying to tell your eye to blink. So then it just got to be so uncomfortable because my eye was just like open. And you don't want anything
Yeah.
to touch your open eyeball. So that's why the eye patch had to be one of those like pointy ones that looked like
Right.
almost like a cone. And then I couldn't wear
Mm-hmm.
my glasses over it. So it just got to the point where I would just wear a contact in my left eye and then just put a
Uh-huh.
black eye patch over my right eye and just try to get through it.
And you had to figure all this out on your own, right?
Uh-huh.
Like there's okay. That's the part that I'm a little and understanding that this is a condition that is really different for
Mm-hmm.
everyone and
Mm-hmm.
that there's different time, although that nurse was pretty
Yeah.
dismissive.
Right.
Where I'm like, okay, just the eye issues that you're talking about alone, but
Yeah.
eating, drinking, like
Like nearly impossible to do. Like, because that's not
yeah.
something that is well, most of the things that I couldn't do anymore were involuntary, right? Like
Hmm.
if I was surprised by something, you have a surprised face. I couldn't do that anymore. So even to this day, when I try to drink out of a straw, I can't because like
Really?
if you can even tell,
Yeah. Oh
like
yeah.
that doesn't close all the way.
Yeah.
So when it first happened, I discovered this. Of course, I tried to drink out of a straw because I that's what I did every day. I was drinking water
Yeah.
constantly, and the water
Yeah.
literally just all came out of my mouth. And I was like,
Oh,
that's new. So I would either have to just use like a glass, or I would have to try to drink out of the straw on the good side and then hold the other side closed so that I could have a seal.
that's so stressful.
Uh-huh. And the eye, what else? I'm trying to think. Like also even your nose, like there's a muscle in there like that you can flare your nostrils. I can't do that on
Uh-huh.
this side. And
Oh,
so I have a little bit of a deviated septum. So like breathing was even tough. Like I remember just walking around wearing like a nasal strip to try to open up my nose because, just normal daily functions. And then I would end up breathing through my mouth and my lips would get really chapped. And I was
oh,
just like,
right.
okay. And this can even cause loss of taste, which I didn't experience. A lot
Mm,
of people in the amazing Facebook group, like support group that I'm in, have experienced that. I did not have that issue
hmm.
that I recall, but I do remember like it does, your seventh cranial does, excuse me for saying so much,
Oh,
control
you're good.
your salivary glands. So it can paralyze those. So you get really dry mouth. So you have to drink water constantly, but you can't because water doesn't stay in your mouth.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I am so stressed out for you. That sounds
Yes.
beyond uncomfortable
It was.
while
It
you're
was,
already so pregnant.
yeah. It was, I mean, it just, it's in the moment, you're just trying to get through it. You're just,
Hmm.
because like I said, I had a toddler. And thank
Yeah.
God my mom was there. I mean, and
Yeah.
my in-laws live 30 minutes away. They were there constantly helping. I mean, so my mom eventually had to go home. So they were not sure when I was going to have my son. So she went
Hmm.
home to kind of refresh. She had some appointments she had to go to. And my mother-in-law came up every single day. She drove me to my weekly appointments when my mom was gone. My father-in-law would come and watch the oldest one so I could try to rest.
Mm,
Because in my research and in through the Facebook group that I have done my research in as well, and the people that have completely healed, the only thing that differs is that they were able to take like a disability um, time off of work to
hmm.
literally not do anything except for let their body try to heal. And I could
Wow.
not do that because I was so
No.
pregnant. And I had a toddler, and I'm not good at napping or anything as it is. So it's like
Yeah.
I could just like lay around and sleep all day. But that's the
Hmm.
only thing that I think truly is the people that completely heal are able to just take time off of work, take time to for themselves, and truly get, tons of vitamins and let their body just heal. And that was just not an option for me. It
No.
just wasn't.
No.
Not even close.
No, that's definitely not an option for you at that season of your life
No,
at all.
no.
And not to overemphasize the pregnancy piece, but I'm really struck by you talking about how, Bell's palsy of pregnancy. And I
Mm-hmm.
think about, being a bystander of friends that are pregnant right now or have been pregnant, and where
Yep.
it's you're going to have a baby, you need
Mm-hmm.
to be getting your
Baby's got to come out.
nutrition,
Mm-hmm.
baby, and yeah, and like you need to be taking care of yourself. You need to be
Right.
hydrating and eating that protein so that you're ready for, like, when we were talking about like professional athletes playing through it. I was just
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, I was thinking about labor. I'm like, that's like running an ultra marathon.
Yes.
um, and I'm just a little bit surprised that there wasn't more solutioning around, like, let's make sure that Kate's getting nutrition and
Mm-hmm.
hydrating, and
Mm-hmm.
it sounds like wildly under researched
Mm-hmm.
and known about it. But I guess, yeah, that's just where
Yeah.
my mind keeps going to, is
No, you're
she's
right. And it's because
late
it's
term
a
pregnancy.
right. And a lot of times, unfortunately, this is just like healthcare in general. I feel like the baby is prioritized and
Right.
the mom is prioritized, but everything that you do or can that you maybe would need to do, you have to first check how it affects the baby, which makes sense. Like the baby's
Right.
completely, vulnerable in there. I knew that. I had another
Hmm.
baby. I would have done anything for my
Of
son. Like I would
course.
do anything for
Right.
either of them. But
Yes.
it really, like, all the things that I was looking in this Facebook group that people were, you need to take XYZ vitamins to help with your support your nervous system and yada, yada, yada. And so I'm like, okay, great. And then my mom would look it up and she's like, no, you can't take that one because you're pregnant.
Can't take that while you're pregnant. Oh man.
And even after I had him, I wasn't pregnant anymore, but then I was breastfeeding.
Right.
So that is, you basically, the only thing that's different in that scenario is that the baby's on the outside. So there's a little bit more things that you can do. Or I tried acupuncture after he was born because I didn't know acupuncturists that I don't think, I know I need to, someone can correct me on this, but I don't think you can do it if you're pregnant. But again, I may be wrong. I just remember the guy that I called said he was very old school. He said I do not feel comfortable doing this on you until you after you give birth. And I was like,
Mm,
okay.
yeah.
So January, so that was January 6th. All this happens, right?
Yes.
January 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. I'm just sitting there waiting for it to
Yes.
magically go away. I'm taking all these
Right.
steroids and all these steroids that they're giving you. I don't know if anyone here has taken steroids. I'm sure that you have, but it makes you incredibly hungry and incredibly grumpy. So not
Mm.
only was I having pregnancy hormones, I was just in like a roid rage, is what my husband would call it. In like a loving way, of course. He's like, and then there was my blood pressure. I mean, I just felt like I was constantly under a microscope, and I just felt like I was like outside of myself. Like I just
Yeah.
couldn't be present in my body because I was carrying this beautiful child, and I
Hmm.
knew I was going to have to meet him soon, but the circumstances that it was under I just felt like that got robbed from me, that I
Yeah.
wasn't able to like have that wonderful last month of nesting. um
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Oh, it's okay.
but
It's really hard.
it was really, really hard.
Yeah.
And then so I had him January 19th.
Mhm.
January 18th, I called my OB and I said, my blood pressure is so high. And she's like, okay, you have
Yeah.
to come in. Like this, she's like, you just need to come in. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So we pack up my bag, packed the hospital bag that we had already had. My in-laws came up and stayed with our oldest, and my mom was on her way back down. So they were all just
Mhm.
like kind of corralling to help take care of us.
Yeah.
So I go in and they admit me and they're like, okay, we're gonna probably do an induction, but I don't think we'll do it tomorrow. So my husband and I are like, we
Okay.
just drove an hour, like we have childcare. I was basically at this point, I was like, can we just get him out? Which
Yeah.
sounds like retrospectively sounds like terrible, but it didn't feel it at the time. I just had so much going on and so much happened that I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I felt like the only thing that could make me happy was to see him.
Yes,
So
of course.
he
Yeah.
so we stayed the night in a hotel like across the street, which actually they were wonderful and they gave us a discounted rate at the hotel because we
Oh,
were at the
good.
hospital, which was like, you got to take those silver linings when they come.
Sure. Yeah.
So we stay at the hotel. I get some rest. Because I know the labor and delivery is a marathon, so I'm like, okay, I need to get
Mhm.
some sleep. So I go and
Yeah.
get like 8, 9 hours of sleep, which I felt great. And so we go in, they induced me at 11 a.m. on the 19th. And I just, that day, I was just chilling. My husband and I were sitting there with my mom ordering mirrors. And which is funny that we were deciding to order mirrors at that point because of, and
Yeah.
then we were just, ordering stuff for the house. We ordered like doorknobs, just normal stuff while you're in
Yeah.
labor. We had nothing else to do. I was sitting in the hospital. And then I think my contractions started getting closer together. My water broke. Like it'll happen really fast. But
Yeah.
the thing with, having contractions is they're very intense, obviously.
Mm.
And what do you want to do when things get really intense and painful is you want to scrunch up your face and close your eyes, right?
Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
could not do that. So my just like I was just exhausted just from the sheer like trying to I was in labor, so that's
Yeah.
exhausting as it is. And
Yes.
then
Yes.
my face is tired. I have a headache. They're giving me as much Tylenol as they can because like my eye was bothering. It was just like, my husband's sitting there just like helpless. He's just, he wants to help me.
Oh,
He's asking them,
yeah.
can you get her an eye patch? She's having a lot of trouble with her eyes. She can't blink it. And the nurses are wonderful. They were trying as hard as they could. They couldn't find me. I think they ended up finding me like some sort of big bandage that they ended up putting over my eye, which was
Yeah.
just pregnancy is beautiful.
Oh.
I have my son at 11:30 at night, and he was perfectly fine. He came out, weighed more than his brother did, and
Mm.
he had 2 weeks less time to cook. So he had a full head of hair. Because he
Oh.
immediately latched. We were breastfeeding fine. I mean, it was just the
Oh,
best thing I could have
good.
asked for. But my husband, of course, was taking pictures, and I just remember looking at the pictures and being like, "Oh my god, I look like a monster." Like
Oh.
it's just like your whole like I couldn't smile at my son. Like
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that was really hard. Um,
It's so
and
hard.
so he it was, I mean, like I said, he was fine. We got discharged. We got to go home. We got to see my oldest, and then we just sort of had to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was really tough because I was trying to, like I said, I was trying to breastfeed. The baby wasn't sleeping. I'm trying to like do all this Googling. How do I fix my face? And then I just remember being like, I don't, I don't have that. Like, I don't care. It doesn't matter.
And postpartum hormones.
Right. And I
I
think I had just finished the steroids at that point because it was like a 10
Oh,
day
wow.
course or something.
Yeah.
And they taper you off of steroids, which is, normal so that you don't have like a total withdrawal and you're just an absolute mess.
Yeah.
So I was off of the steroids, I think. So that did help because my, roid rage, if you will, wasn't as bad, but it was, and everyone that came in, I remember after I had Adrian, they would tell me, I'm so sorry this happened. Like I've seen it before, like the nurses and stuff. Everyone just made it didn't, they weren't trying to tell me you're going to be okay, but it just did help that people were actually acknowledging it and
Yes.
saying, I've seen this before. You're not the only one. It does happen and it's awful when it happens. And hopefully you'll be better soon.
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
I was in I was in a hospital, so I figured, oh, these people now they've seen everything.
Yeah.
It wasn't the
Yeah.
labor and delivery unit, so it's not like I was down in the ER, but
Yeah.
it
I'm
was,
glad they were able to share that with you and say that because I feel like when we go through things like that where we're like, I haven't heard of this before, or I have
yeah,
like aware that my neighbors had this, but I've never even imagined it for myself. We feel so
right,
like, oh my gosh, and especially when it's presenting on your face, like
right. It's like it's my
not like
face,
it's
it's
your
not like something I can hide, not hide,
right.
but it's not something that like it would, yeah, it's
Yeah, like
literally the thing that people look at when they talk to you.
right, right. Like with different conditions, we can by the time this episode comes out, we will have had an episode about scoliosis. And
Okay.
that's something that like you wear clothing,
Mm-hmm.
you don't
Right.
really see it.
Yep.
This is your face.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like makes you so vulnerable.
Yeah.
Like I would say emotionally vulnerable,
Yeah.
where
Mm-hmm.
it's like everybody's seeing what's happening right now.
Right. Yeah. And I
Did
just
your
had a baby, and I had braces.
oh, and you had braces.
I forgot
Kate,
that part.
oh my gosh,
Like,
your
talk
poor
about
mouth.
a trifecta, right?
Oh,
So
oh,
I don't know how I forgot I had braces, but I had had some TMJ issues in the past, and my teeth, I had done a treatment to help my TMJ pain. Like I couldn't open my mouth. And now that
hmm,
I've learned a little bit more. It's like not that that caused this, but it's all in the
they're
same,
tied.
yeah.
Yeah,
And everything, in your body is of course tied to, it's all in the same place. So it's tied somehow.
yeah.
So I had braces too. Oh man,
Oh my Lord.
completely
You
forgot about
were
that.
just a warrior.
I was doing it.
Is that did your blood pressure go down after
Yes,
you had
it
him?
did.
Okay, good. Because I know
Yeah,
that
I didn't.
sometimes when blood pressure is an issue
Right.
and like later in pregnancy,
Yep.
that's something that you still have to monitor and magnesium
Yes.
other thing with
They
that.
are I went to UPMC, so University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. That's a big hospital up in Pittsburgh. And they
Mm-hmm.
do I can't remember what it's called, but it's like 6 weeks postpartum. They have you have to enter your blood pressure once a day. And if it's ever at all, you enter it in an app. And if it's ever all at all out of the normal range, the nurse calls you like immediately,
Oh,
which
cool.
was
Okay.
that happened maybe once.
Okay.
But it was really, I mean, I hadn't heard of that. I thought that was amazing that they did that.
I've never heard of that either. Yeah.
Yeah. And they gave me another free blood pressure cuff. They were like, they told me how I needed to take it, like, sitting down and not after any strenuous activity, which like I wasn't going to be doing anything strenuous. I just had a
Mm-hmm.
baby. So
Mm-hmm.
they were monitoring me constantly because postpartum eclampsia is also a thing that happens, and I'm sure you've seen it on TV shows and that kind
Mm-hmm.
of thing before. Like it, so
Yeah.
once the baby comes out, it doesn't mean you're completely in the clear. So that's why they had to monitor me consistently after that. But yeah, thankfully it was completely, because I've had normal blood pressure like my entire life. I've been like perfect. The nurses always tell me that's
Yeah.
you have perfect blood pressure, whatever that means. And
Yeah.
so when this happened, it was just weird. I was like, that's weird. I didn't have that with my oldest. Like
Yeah.
it's like my body. I don't know if it was just too many pregnancies in such a short time, which I'm not going to say that that's the case because that's happened to people before and they've
Oh,
never had Bell's palsy,
yeah.
but everybody's, that's what the thing, it's everybody's different, right? So what
Mm-hmm.
happens to me doesn't happen to everyone. Obviously, I know that. But yeah, it's just, yeah, it's wild.
Yeah. No, that sounds really wild, and I just,
Yeah.
e even just the blood pressure, preeclampsia, I feel like it's under discussed
Hmm.
until people are pregnant or their partner's pregnant or they have
Right.
a family member where I'm like that is actually um that can cause women to die. Like
Yes.
women can it's a very serious thing. And so
Hmm.
I feel like when we add the different just environmental things with the
Right.
move
Yep.
and
It was
like
like
having such a
my ENT basically said it was like a perfect storm.
perfect
Literally,
storm.
that's how he
Yeah.
described it. And I
All
was like,
these things.
that is the most accurate description of it, I guess, because, and so jumping ahead a little, not too
Yeah.
far. So on our timeline, so
Yes.
April 6th, which was exactly 3 months post, onset is what everyone in the
Mhm.
the Bell's palsy world calls it. It's your onset. It's not your
Onset.
diagnosis. It's just your onset of
Oh,
your
okay.
symptoms.
Good. Okay.
So
Perfect.
3 months post onset of my condition, I saw an ear, nose, and throat doctor, which I had in my mind that didn't make sense. Like, why am I going to see an ENT? Because my cranial nerve, which would be a neurologist,
Yeah.
why am I going to see an ENT? But everyone in this Facebook group said, you need to go see an ENT. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I go do that. And he, ironically, I called his office. And you know how, if you've ever tried to get in with an ENT, they're like, we can see you in 6 to 8 months. And so I'm expecting that. And I said, she said, is there anything specific that's going on? I said, yeah, I actually developed Bell's palsy 3 weeks ago. And she's like, oh my God. And she starts not panicking, but you could tell she's moving. So I
Urgency.
hear a lot of
Yes.
typing.
Yes.
She's like, okay, can you come in next, I think it was maybe April 1st or something. She's like, can you come in next week? And I'm like, oh, sure. So I find someone
Fast
to
pass.
watch. Yeah. I was like, this is fun. I feel like I'm at Disney World.
Yeah.
So she gets me in. I find someone to watch both the kids because I told my husband I don't want to take the baby. And so he took the oldest to daycare. He took the day off of work, which, yeah, it was actually April. So he wasn't on like his paternity leave anymore.
Okay.
So he watches the baby. I go in, and the ENT's like not excited to see me, but he's like,
Mm.
hi. And he was wonderful. His name's Dr. Shaken. He works at UPMC. Oh, he's actually retired, excuse me. So he starts telling me about his story. He had Bell's palsy when he
Oh.
was in his 20s. And I said, what happened? And he said, well, I was helping my brother move. And I go, shut your mouth. I said, I was moving when this happened. And he was like, yes, but you were pregnant. And I was like, okay, obviously. But it was just crazy in that we had that connection because
Mhm.
sometimes when you go and see doctors or anyone in the medical field, and I'm not speaking ill of anyone, it's just,
Right,
it
right.
feels different when that person has actually experienced what you're experiencing because it can be,
100%.
yes, it can be such a scary, daunting thing to have to admit that you're feeling self-conscious or feeling scared because like your face doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's just your face. And I'll tell you about what people would say to me later on.
Mm. Mhm,
But
mhm.
it just was so nice to have him be able to relate to me as a physician. And he said he specialized in ENT because of what happened to him, which I thought was
Oh,
amazing.
yeah, it
But I guess it
drove
doesn't.
his life work.
Right. Yes. So he specialized in facial paralysis.
Okay.
So he did, your regular ENT work as well, obviously, because there's not enough people for him to only see Bell's palsy patients. So when I went in to see him, he gave me so much more information that I had seen online, but I couldn't.
Mhm.
You can always read things on the internet and think, well, how do I apply that to myself? Do I have to do that? Or is that just what someone else tried and did and it worked for them? Maybe it's not going to work for me.
Yeah.
So he explained to me how I need to tape. So you're supposed to tape your eye shut at night to prevent, you're sleeping. So you're vulnerable. I mean, not that my husband would smack me in the eye or like the dog would get up on our bed, which she's never done in her 7 years of life, ever done anything she's not supposed to do.
Yeah.
But just anything that could get into your eye, my eye wasn't closed. So he's like, you
Yeah.
have to protect your eye, which I already knew that. But he showed me how to tape it. And then he gave me there is a company that specifically makes weighted little discs, they almost look like, for people with facial paralysis because
Mm.
it adds weight to your lid and helps it close.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
didn't know those existed. That was not in any of my Googlings. So he gives me one of those where he tested out a couple of different weights depending on, how bad my blinking was, which it was
Mhm.
very not good.
Mm.
So he gives me a weight, he shows me how to attach it, and I could blink better. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than, it probably went from like a 20 or like a 10% blinking to like 35, maybe 40,
Oh,
which was
yeah.
better. So
Yes.
he was very good, but he also gave me some devastating news that generally in his experience and history as a physician has never seen someone who developed Bell's palsy completely recover if they got it while they were pregnant. And I'm
Okay.
like, and he's like, so you're 3 months out and you don't have any movement. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, it's not looking good. And I was
Oh,
like, oh boy. So that was devastating. I mean, I
yeah,
know I've
that's
said that word a
scary.
lot, but you just kind of hope. You just are sitting there. I'm going to be normal again, whatever that means. And it's going to be fine. Everyone just keeps telling me I got to wait. So he says, it's probably, you're probably going to have some movement, but you're never going to look like you did before. And I was like, okay, well, I didn't expect to completely look like I did before, but I just wanted the function. It's for me, it wasn't of course, the mental toll that it took on me was tough because, like you said, it's your face. It's what everyone
Yeah.
looks at. It's the function that I want to be able to just use my face. I want to be able to drink. I want to be able to eat. I couldn't brush my teeth with my electric toothbrush because the toothpaste would go everywhere.
Right.
So I just wanted the functionality of my face back, like the looks okay, but then like I said, I was postpartum. I'm married. eh, Whatever, but just the functionality of my face, that's what I wanted to have
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
And he basically just like shit all over that,
Oh,
which honestly, after what the nurse said to me in the ER, I was like not numb to it, but I was not expecting him to like make it seem like anything with rose-colored glasses.
man.
I told him, I said, be honest with me. Like I'm very straightforward. I want you to just tell me,
Yeah.
and then whether or not it's awful or it's great, I'm gonna have to find a way to deal with it. So he was like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna be totally honest with you. So he told me that. And he said, but there's one thing I want to try, and I want to try it's called an e-stim. So it's like a little like electrodes that they attach to your face
Hmm.
to see if there's anything going on beneath the surface that the naked eye can't see.
Mm.
Because when you
Sure.
have movement in your face, when you have facial paralysis, it is very, very hard to detect.
Hmm.
So he's like, let's just try this. And so he sends me into this room. I have to wait like 20 minutes. I'm sitting there sweating, like, please let there be something going on underneath there. Cause he said, if there is anything, it's really good news. It means you are going to have movement back. So I'm like, just please, something
Yes.
go
Yes.
right. So the girl hooks me up to all these machines. He leaves and they do it. And I'm literally sitting there just like, please tell me something good. And he comes back in and he's
Yeah.
like, oh my God. And he's so excited. He's like, Kate, there's movement. There's something moving in there. And I was like,
Yeah.
thank God. So he didn't tell me that there was like, that means I'm going to fully recover. He just said, you're 3 months out. If there was no movement right now that I just saw on that machine, if there was nothing, then you would probably be paralyzed for a very long time. So I'm like, okay, cool.
Ooh.
So that was really I was able to finally take a breath. I felt like
Yeah.
in the last 3 months with everything going on, having a newborn, and for like a normal person, that wouldn't be that exciting. But for me, as someone who had no movement whatsoever in that side of my face, that was a huge deal for me. And like even though no one
Yes.
could see it, and so that leads me to May 1st of 2023. I was nursing my son,
Hmm.
and I put him to bed, and I remember being like, something feels like weird right by my lip right here. And
Uh-huh.
I'm like, okay, so he's like asleep on my chest as newborns are wont to do,
Yeah.
passed out on my chest, probably snoring or something. And I pull up my phone and I like turn on the video and I like just tried like, cause you have to basically, even if you don't think about it, your brain has to tell your face what to do. Right.
Uh-huh.
So I'm
Uh-huh.
in my, and what he told me is if you ever have any movement, you have to tell your brain, I am smiling or I am
Okay.
raising my eyebrow. That is what he would say. You have to think it and then your face will do it, allegedly.
Okay.
So I'm sitting in there and I'm telling myself in my head, because I didn't want to wake him up. I'm like, I'm smiling. I am smiling. I am
Yeah.
smiling. Like I probably sounded like a crazy person. And I recorded the video, ended the video, and I watched it and I saw movement. And I didn't throw my son, but I picked him up very gently and I put him in his little bassinet and I sprinted out in front of my husband. I'm like, my face is moving. And he's like, okay, wait a minute. Let's just take a deep breath. And so I show him the video and bless his heart. He didn't mean anything bad by it. He just goes, I don't see anything. And
Oh,
I'm like,
buddy.
Taylor, read the room.
Yeah.
So he's like, but no, wait, no, I mean, he's like, if you felt it, then, that's great. And so then we get excited.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
watched it like 600 more times. And I'm sitting there and I'm trying to tell my brain to tell my mouth to move, whatever. And then I called my doctor the next day. I said, I have movement. And he said, that's phenomenal. He called me right back, which never happens again. If you ever know an ENT, you don't ever get a, like, they're
Yeah.
so busy.
Yeah.
And so he calls me right back and he's like, I just sent in a referral to physical therapy. And you can't start
Mm.
physical therapy with any type of paralysis unless you have some sort of movement because there's nothing to therapize if there's nothing moving.
Oh,
So I had to wait.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So that was not, it's just the waiting. That's literally what everybody told me. You just have to wait. You just have to wait. You just have to wait. And so I finally waited long enough. I thought 3 months
Mhm.
was long enough. I was actually almost 4. So I start physical therapy. They get me in the next week, or even I don't. It might have been like a couple days later, and I have
Okay.
to drive an hour to see her. She's the only one in the area or in within that hospital system that does facial physical therapy because there's specific specialties where people who only work on the face, which I didn't know.
Mhm.
Again, I'm learning things literally every
Yeah.
day.
This is new news to me today.
Yeah. So I go and see her, and she was awesome. I mean, she was amazing. Her name was
Yeah.
Jordan. She was so empathetic, and that's what I needed. I needed
Good.
somebody who could say, "This really sucks,"
Mhm.
and I totally understand. And not that she had it, she didn't understand, but she sees people with it. So she tells me there are exercises I need to do. I have to do massages. So I have to wake up literally every day and massage my face. So I would have to like get up because what happens when the muscles don't move, and anyone like Ashley LeCompte Lozich probably could tell you way more about this because she's a lot smarter than me. But when your muscles don't work anymore or they don't move, they become atrophied.
Mm.
So I had to get them basically back from the dead. So they're in there just
Wow.
hardening. I learned later. So they are just
Oh, yeah.
hardening in there because they're not moving. So she's like, you have to do them every day. She's giving me like this regimented schedule, which was great because it was like something that I could get up and do every day. And I thought, this will make it better. This is going to make it better. I just have to commit to
Yes.
them. I'm a big exercise person. I love to work out. I love to run. I love to walk, everything. So for
Mhm.
me, that kind of took place of my like physical exercise, like, or I would do it
Yeah.
in addition to it. Right.
Mhm.
So I start doing those, and she gives me, it's called a facial grading score, and it is out of 100. And mine on my right hand side was a whopping 9 out of 100.
9. Single digits. Okay.
So that was, she was kind of just like, that's not good. And I was like,
Yeah.
I know, but, and she's like, we can fix it though. So we set goals of what I wanted to be at and how we would get there. So I looked through my past history, like my medical records, because they always leave notes, and I was reading them all and I remembered a lot of things. But we had, like I said, it wasn't too many exercises, but when you exercise or you try to work a muscle that hasn't worked in a long time, it makes you really fatigued.
Oh, yeah.
So even in my face with all of these, there's a lot of muscles in your face that you don't realize. And so you're trying to get them to move. And I remember every time I would have to do it before I would go to bed because I would get so tired.
Oh, yeah.
Which I didn't even think about. Like a few times I did it like in the morning after I would nurse my son, and then I'd be like, I have to go take a nap. Like
Yeah.
I'm so tired.
Mhm.
So, you know, that was tough. Was just
Yeah.
constantly looking at my phone, making sure I did the right amount of reps. And I would have to, like, she would tell me to look and use a mirror, which made it easier to see exactly what I was doing.
Mhm.
So I would have to, like, she said the same thing, tell your brain I am smiling. So then I would have to force my mouth to smile. So that way my brain would think that it was the muscle was doing it. So I would have to be looking in the mirror and telling my mouth to smile. And then I would have to push it up. Right. So like my
Oh,
finger was like yeah, my finger
yeah,
was
acting like
like
the
yes,
muscle.
like the nerve almost. My
Oh,
finger was like telling my mouth what to do when my brain. So
yeah.
it was it was really interesting. And same thing with my eyebrow. Like I still can't raise
Mm.
my eyebrow. And that was one thing that I used to do all the time whenever somebody would say something, I would be like, and my sisters would call it the Katie face, and I couldn't do
Yeah.
that anymore. And that was so sad.
Oh,
So
yeah.
when I was looking in the mirror doing these, I would be like, I'm making the Katie face. And I would do it. Like but I'd have to again force my And
Yeah.
then when I would do the
Manually.
eye closure practice, I would have to tell my eye is closing, and I would have to force my eye to close. So it was
Wow.
just, you're essentially retraining muscles that have worked since birth to work again,
Yeah.
which is nuts to think about.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's not something I never thought I would ever have to do, is to try to tell my brain to tell my face to smile or
Yeah.
frown or show my, like, I can't do this. Like, I can't
Oh
show my
yeah.
bottom teeth on this side like
Oh
this. I
yeah.
can't do that.
Yeah.
It's like, and it,
Yeah.
again, now I'm over 2 years out, still can't do it.
It's a
So,
really good reminder of all these little involuntary things that our bodies do as humans that we
yep.
just come out of the womb. Oh,
Hmm.
I guess there's always like the, exceptions, but like
Right. You
what you're
can't walk when
describing.
you come out. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Where it's just a helpful reminder of taking all aspects of our health,
Hmm.
or being grateful for
Hmm.
them. And
Hmm.
not like in a toxic positivity way, but where it's
Right.
I'm like, yeah,
No.
like I wouldn't even think about that
Right.
I can just blink whenever I want to blink
Yeah.
and like do whatever with my mind. Like
Hmm.
we
Hmm.
take it for granted until
Yeah.
we something like this happens to us or somebody that
Right.
we know or care about. So
Right. Which is why
yeah,
I am trying to talk more about it, because I don't like shy.
exactly.
If someone, like, when it first happened, I would I wouldn't like hide, but I remember I didn't want to take newborn pictures with my son. I was like, "We'll just take
Oh
pictures of
yeah.
him," which we had taken photos with our oldest after he was born, and we don't have any of us with our second, and that will be one of the biggest regrets I will ever have. We don't have any pictures of us when he was, like, professional photos when he was born.
Yeah.
So, after realizing that, I think it was probably like 6 months later, I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to take pictures with my kids.
Oh
Like,
good.
I
Yeah.
don't think, like, and that was another thing that I saw in the Facebook group that I'm in. It's called Bell's Palsy Survivors and Support Group or something long. I can check for you. But,
Mm-hmm.
the one thing that people would say is just take the pictures. Like, no one cares what you look like. The only thing they're going to remember is that you were there and how you made them feel. And I know that's like a Maya Angelou
Totally.
quote
Yes.
and totally messed it up. But that was just after that, I just remember being like, you know what? Like, I never was a vain person until this happened, I feel like. And now it's
Mm,
like, I have these two beautiful kids. I don't want to have in 20 years have them be like, Mom, or in 10 years at school, like, Mom, I need these pictures for XYZ project. Do you
yeah.
have any? And have me be like, you know, that would be awful.
Yeah.
So that was one of the
Mm-hmm.
main, reasons why I took, of course, I was taking progress pictures, but like, those are not attractive. Those are just for me to clinically have to show my doctor or my physical therapist.
Right.
But I just was like, I think it was, so I started the physical therapy in May. I'm seeing her monthly. So she said, this is not a condition that improves rapidly at this point. Like, you're 4 months in, you're on the slow track, unfortunately. So I see her
Mm,
once a month. She gives me the exercises and massages and everything to do. So I see her once a month. And then in like
mm-hmm.
July of 2023, I think I was like, I'm going to post on Instagram about this.
Mm-hmm.
And it just came to me one day. I don't know why I decided to do it. I just was like,
Yeah.
I feel like I haven't, again, not that I post a lot, but I hadn't posted, any pictures, like newborn pictures or anything. So I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm just going to make a video and I'm going to tell people what's going on with me, and maybe somebody will see it and connect with it or have suggestions for me or
Yeah.
something like that. And it absolutely blew up. Not to the point where I went viral. I'm not that cool. But it, like, Shannon, our mutual friend,
Yes.
she had, I just had people reaching out to me that I hadn't talked to in a long time, saying how, not, they would say, how strong I am and how beautiful I
Yes.
am and how, impactful I am as a person. My looks don't define me, all that stuff. So it was really cathartic for me in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like it was out in the open. So people that, how the social media is, you follow people you haven't seen in whatever.
Yeah.
And if those people hadn't seen me, or if someone that I know around here does follow me, but if I hadn't told them, they would be like, oh, so then they would, already know about it, I guess, if I had saw them at the store or something, and they wouldn't just
Mm-hmm.
be like, what's wrong with your face? They
Yeah.
would know, which some people did say to me. Like, I remember one woman looked right at me and goes, "Did you have a stroke or something?" I was
My
like,
God.
kind of. And honestly,
That's a
like
little invasive. Excuse
yes,
me.
initially I was offended, and then I was like, you know what? I kind of like wish more people not would be that blunt, but would say, honey, and I didn't know this woman. I don't even remember what I was doing. I think I was at the hospital for a follow-up appointment somewhere for something, and she just looked at me. We were just talking, and because you can really notice it when I talk back then,
Mm,
because I couldn't pronounce P's or B's or anything that really has you like M's were
yeah.
tough. So my last name is Shepherd. So I would have to call. And if I had to spell my last name, which I often do, I would have to have my husband do it because people would be like, I'm sorry, SHE what? D? And I'd be like,
Oh,
because I couldn't form the P sound with my
yeah.
mouth because my mouth just wouldn't move. So I would have to
Wow.
be in the car with him and he would have to call because we were calling insurance constantly, trying to see what was covered, what we could do, everything under the sun. So he would
Right.
have to literally, or I would say it's like a German Shepherd. And even still, people would be confused. And I was like, okay, I got to call a lifeline. I got to call my husband over so he can explain how to spell our
Mm,
last name for you.
yeah, right.
Um, but I don't know how that I just got on that tangent. But oh, so it was, yeah,
Yeah.
I posted on Instagram and it was so nice. Like people would text me, I would get, just and it's not that it made me feel like validated in my experience. It just was nice to get it off my chest so that people could understand
Hmm.
what I was going through. And there were a lot of people who said, "Oh, I know X, Y, so and so had this. They either really fully recovered or they didn't," or people would try to put me in touch with someone that they knew that had struggled with it. So I
Oh,
did
yeah.
connect with a few people, which was amazing. I
That's
mean,
so
it's because it
nice.
can feel so lonely because I had
I
only
bet.
known my friend down the street and my aunt, and it just can feel so isolating because it's not something physical. I mean, it is, but I mean, it's not like you broke your arm and you went and got it fixed and you can move on. It's not like that. It is something that you are constantly dealing with.
Hmm.
So it just can feel very isolating and lonely because, who can relate to not being able to close their mouth or blink? Like that's not
Mm,
something normal everyday people can relate to because it's an
hmm.
involuntary action that you have to do. You have to blink, you have to eat, you
Hmm.
have to drink, you have to, you know, do
All the
everything that
human
you
stuff.
do with
Yeah.
your face. And people would say, "Oh, it could have been worse." And I'm like, "Really, Sharon, how though?"
Yeah.
To me, it could not have been much worse to me in my
Hmm.
body. It could at the everything that happened at that moment on that day.
Yeah.
I don't think
Yeah.
so. But people would be like, "At least it wasn't a stroke." And I would say, "You're absolutely right. That would have been devastating." And I know that strokes have happened to I have had family members who've had them, friends who've had them.
Yeah.
But
Same.
saying that doesn't make it any. I know they intend to make it you feel better by saying that, but it's not how it
Yeah.
came off
It
to
just
me.
eh, the the more I just learn about people's experiences and the different challenges people overcome, uh, using the phrase at least when offering comfort to somebody at at this point, it just really doesn't seem like it's really ever like the appropriate thing to say to
No.
make a comparative suffering statement about what
Mhm.
somebody else is going through.
Right. And
And like
it's
you
made
said,
me
people mean
yeah.
well, but
Right. Right.
yeah.
It's made me more aware too of the things that people are going through. And it's made me, there have been some pros to this happening. Like I have
Hmm.
been able to be more empathetic towards people for certain things that happened to them because I was so blindsided by this that I've had to learn to just not take things as they or I guess take things as they are, but not take everything so seriously. It's like it's just you just have to let people feel
Yeah.
what they feel,
Hmm.
and you can't just fix everything. Like I'm a fixer. I want to fix
Hmm.
people's problems. I want to fix my problems. This is the one thing that I could not fix. There
Hmm.
was nothing I could do to fix it. So I just
Hmm.
had to accept that I couldn't fix it, and it really has changed my view on
Yeah.
being patient and empathizing with people on and with myself. I've been more patient with
Mhm.
myself and my kids because
Mhm.
raising toddlers is hard.
Mhm.
It's just, it's not taught me, it's not, it has completely changed my life, but not in a way that I don't know, because it's not like over yet. You know, how you can like
Right.
see it
It's
on the other
ongoing.
side, but it's just,
Mhm.
it's still happening, but it's
Mhm.
not as bad as it originally was. So that's the only thing that I can really compare it to, is it's not as bad as when it first happened.
Mhm. Yeah. And because everybody's journey is different, like, it seems like it would be pretty unhelpful if you were trying to think about your experience compared to somebody else's. Like, I definitely hear the having the support group, be connected with other people
Mhm.
who have had the onset of Bell's palsy and lived with,
Mhm.
um, but you can't compare it to anybody
Mm-mm.
else because it
Mm-mm.
is so different for each
Yep.
individual.
Yeah.
I think what I also really there's a couple other things I really appreciate in what you're saying here. And one is like you were in a situation where you were powerless over your body and things that had been involuntary. And what I hear you when you're talking about like empathy and compassion, I'm hearing a lot of acceptance and really, like the serenity
Yep.
prayer, things I can
Mhm.
change,
Mhm.
things I can't change, wisdom to know
Right.
the difference. Which I don't know how different people feel about that, but that has been really helpful for me in terms of going through powerless moments where it's like where you can find that line of like what I can do and what I can't do and like releasing the outcome because there's
Mhm.
I can't do anything. And for
Right.
type A people, that's really hard because like, what do you
Yes,
mean?
it's
Follow the plan,
the
have the
biggest
outcome. Follow the
challenge.
plan, have
Right.
the outcome.
Right. That's
And
exactly right.
so I just wanted to give you like
Thank
props
you.
for that. And then the
Mhm.
other thing that I really appreciate is it's I feel like it's one of those kind of counterintuitive things about being a human where it's like I am feeling powerless, but I'm going to decide to publicly share about this. And in this day and age, that's taking it to social media,
Mhm.
and where it's this thing that we've been carrying around or being like, I don't want to talk about it. This is a painful thing for me. But then when we shed a light on it, it's like we reclaim some of that power.
Right.
And
That's
more
so
often than
true.
not, people are going to meet us with love. And like you mentioned, Shannon, she's such a cheerleader for people, and there's these
Mhm.
people out there that you might have never
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, we follow each other, but like I haven't thought about you since college, that are like,
Yep.
you go girl, like proud
Mhm.
of you, thank you for sharing, thank you for being vulnerable.
Mhm.
And I'm sure that you empowered other people to do the same.
I
And
hope
so I
so.
just want to give credit. I also understand like not everybody wants to take something that is so personal and
Mhm.
tender
Yeah.
to social media,
Right.
but it really does seem like more often than not, when people just kind of have that raw vulnerability, they're
Mhm.
met with support, love,
Yes.
and like resource. Like you got connected
Right.
with more people because of it. So I
Yep.
just really appreciate that you did that.
Thank you. Yes, yeah, and it does really feel like I just had like a weight, lifted off of my shoulders, I guess, if that makes sense. Because like you
Yes.
said, I wouldn't be here talking to you if I hadn't talked about it. Like Shannon wouldn't have
Yeah.
seen it and reached out to me. I mean, it's just, yeah, it really opened a lot
Yeah.
of my eyes to a lot of things, and it just
Totally.
helped me to feel less alone. And in a
Yes.
world where we're always connected, I know this is so, you know, like, what's the word I'm looking for?
Like
Lame always.
counterintuitive.
Yeah. To
Yeah.
say just like we're so connected, but it can feel so isolating because I would like I remember being like looking at people who would be posting online and be like, oh my gosh, they can like, there's the silly things that go through your head. Like they can smile.
Right.
They have such a pretty smile. Or they can, they don't have to think about what I'm thinking about. But once you do
Yeah.
that, it can make it feel your problem like get bigger almost. So
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, I'm just gonna post this on here. I wasn't expecting any. I mean, I knew like my family had known about it, but I had not posted like I have Bell's palsy. P.S. until 6 months in, and yeah, I'm so glad that I did it. And I'm not like a huge, I don't have the time or the resources to like start a charity for it or a nonprofit. I would
Yeah.
love to do that someday, and I know there are women that have done that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just glad that I did because there are several things or resources that I had learned about once I had posted about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um So that
Yeah.
kind of leads me into my next step in the process, which
Yeah.
was September of 2023. So I was
Mhm.
9 months in at
Mhm.
this point. I just go off based off of how old my son was at the time in my
You're
head.
right.
That's how I do
Yeah,
it. I'm like, okay, well,
exactly.
So he was 9 months old, and I remember hearing my doctor and the physical therapist both told me about this condition called synkinesis, which I was like, first of all, how do you spell that? And
Yeah.
second, what is it? And so
Mhm.
basically what it is you it is an involuntary movement due to your nerve is regenerating.
Mhm.
Sorry, I think my husband might be home. Your nerve is, so it's a good thing, quote unquote, because your nerve is healing, which means it's telling your muscles to move. But in my case, it was telling my muscles to move incorrectly. So,
Oh.
yes. So I would like, let's say I would try to smile, and if I would try to smile, my eye would close. So, and I couldn't control it.
Oh,
Yes. So it
okay.
was something that I could not control. It would just be, or I would try to raise my eyebrow and my mouth would go up.
Hmm.
Just like
Yeah.
it was very freaky, and it still happens. And
Okay.
so I called my physical therapist and my doctor. I said, I think I have synkinesis. And they were like, oh no, that's like the
Oh.
death of any hope that you have of full recovery, because
Oh.
once your brain is telling your muscles to do that, it's very hard to tell it to do it correctly. And I don't really,
Yeah.
again, I don't have the medical terminology. I'm not a doctor. I don't know how to explain these things, but that's just my understanding of it. It's basically like once you
Right.
get synkinesis, my physical therapist discharged me. She was like, there's nothing else we can do. She just discharged me,
Mm.
which was like, I didn't love that. I
Yeah.
was like, I think there's still more we can do here. I'm willing to come here. And she just was like, no, there's nothing else we can do, because
Oh.
I would tell, like, like I said, I was telling my brain, or I was telling my mouth to move. And when my mouth would
Yeah.
move, it would then close my eye. And she's like, there's nothing that physical therapy can do. Like, from a physical therapy perspective, she said, you know, you can still try to do these exercises, but I'm worried that the more you try to do them, the worse your synkinesis is going to get.
Oh.
So she just said, I'm just going to discharge you. I'm not going to recommend that you do these exercises anymore, because I don't want it to get worse. And I
Oh,
was like,
man, that's so
what am I
hard.
supposed to do now?
Yeah.
And then my ENT retired.
Oh, no.
My guy, Barry, he retired, which was devastating for me. But his successor was wonderful. She had just left Harvard Medical School, and she was doing a specialty there in facial paralysis. So he said, she's young, she's hip, she's fun, she is wonderful. So I have to wait to get in to see her.
Okay.
So the next step, once you develop synkinesis, is you can get Botox, which most women and some men will think exciting, obviously. But and insurance covers it. So
Okay.
I
Yeah.
was able to go and see my new ENT. She did a um, analysis of my face and said, once she would look at my unwanted movements and the things that would happen involuntarily, that's where she would put the Botox. So she put a lot of it around my eye, which was
Mhm.
terrifying with that big long
Yeah.
needle.
Yeah.
And she it basically helped to paralyze the muscles, right, that were working too hard. So
Okay.
in my neck too, it's your platysma muscle, runs right here along your
Okay.
neck.
Okay.
And that muscle, when like my eyebrow would lift or anything, my whole face basically would contract. And so my platysma, which is a huge, big muscle, it connects right here. And
Okay.
every time anything in my face would move on that side, my platysma would just like spasm and get super tight and really sore.
Oh my gosh.
So
Okay.
yeah, so she put she probably put like 20 units of Botox in my neck, which is insane if you know how many like you would normally get in your face. So
Can I jump in and interrupt you and ask a
yes,
question?
please.
So I'm also tracking on how old your son is, and
Yes.
my I could be wrong, but
No,
Botox
I know what you're gonna ask.
breastfeeding.
I was
Okay.
done breastfeeding.
You were okay. No,
We
I'm not,
were
and not that I was questioning
no,
your like,
that's a good point.
but just
Mhm.
everybody has a different breastfeeding journey, and I was like,
Oh, it
did
was a
was
very
it like I need to
short-lived.
stop this so that I can
Mm-mm.
do this treatment? Okay,
No, that was the first thing she asked me. She's like, "Are you done breastfeeding?" And I said, "Yeah, I am." And we
okay,
only made
okay.
it, I think, 4 months or something. He stopped. He couldn't. It was probably, as the mom, you think it was probably me. It's my fault, whatever. But I'm
Moms
sure
always
that it
think
had,
that.
yeah, I'm sure it had something to do with, my stress. I wasn't producing enough. He had trouble latching. He wasn't gaining weight, and he was fine up until probably the 4 month mark. And my pediatrician was like, "He's 4 months old. You've got enough going on. Like, just
Yeah,
if you want to stop, then I fully respect that. You
yeah.
you need to just stop."
Every single mom, every single baby is different, and so please know that question was just like
No,
a,
you're that's
is
a
this
great question.
informing your
Hmm.
breastfeeding journey, or had
Right.
you already like come to the end of that and now
Yeah,
you're so
we were
sorry,
far past that. No,
not
that's
to
a great
disrupt your
question. That's a great question. And I didn't I just from now that you just like again that jogged my memory. That was the first thing
yeah.
she asked me, I
Oh,
won't
okay,
put
yeah.
this, I won't do the Botox because if you're, you know,
Yeah, you just can't do that
she
when
had a baby at the time too. So she was very
oh,
understanding of my, and
yeah,
that's why that was the first question that she asked me, was because she had a baby as well.
yeah.
So
So she
I
put
guess
20 units
yes,
in
my
here,
neck.
okay, in
Hmm.
your neck,
And then when you have a bunch of muscles down here, it's called your DAO muscle.
okay,
And I don't, or your something.
okay.
I should have looked this up originally at
That's
some
okay,
point, but so it's down by your chin. So basically
okay,
that's like your smile muscle. So when that doesn't work, that's what makes your face look like it's drooping.
okay.
So it just causes it's just there's no function, there's nothing going on. So she told me about this procedure that some people with facial paralysis get, where you can go in and it's called a DAO procedure. You go in and you cut the muscle, which is
Oh,
terrifying. And that's so permanent,
yes,
right? So
yes,
you cut the muscle to give it some more room or something so that you can smile. And so I'm like, oh, okay. At this point, I'm like, whatever works, we could totally do it. Like, I was like, yeah, let's do it.
okay,
So she's like, okay, we can do it. It's an in-office treatment. We can do it the next time you come in. So I'm like, okay. So I go home. I tell my husband about it. He's like, surgery? Sure. Like, you're not even a year in. Like, because anybody, when you get facial paralysis, says you generally don't want to do any intravenous methods until you hit the 1 year mark. So I wasn't there
yeah,
yet. I was about 11
okay,
months out
okay,
or 10 months out. And she
mhm,
said, I don't want to do it. Let's talk about it in 3 months, because she wanted me to get the Botox every 3 months because that's how long it lasts. So
okay,
let's talk about it in February. So I am like, okay, I don't feel comfortable. Something was like, was nothing against her. She was just offering me solutions,
mhm,
and it just seemed like a permanent one that I wasn't in my barely 1 year of having it. Was like, I can't do this.
yeah,
It's like it's not something I can change. After we do it, it's done.
yeah,
Right.
you can't just be like, "Oh, so sew it back up, put it
Right.
back." Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a
So that was
forever
not something that
reaction.
I was comfortable with. And she fully respected that. She's like, I completely understand.
Good.
When you asked me for options, and that's one of them. That's
Yeah,
it. And I was grateful that she told me, but I
mhm,
ultimately decided not to do it. And I was doing some more research in the Facebook group, and it was about a 50-50 split of people who've had it done, that it either didn't work for them, because every person in their experience, in their healing, is different. So some people got the
yeah,
DAO procedure and it worked. They could smile that like maybe 25 to 30% better is like the success rate of it, which for people who have facial paralysis, that's a big percentage, right?
yeah, that's a
Anything
big
is an
increment.
improvement.
Absolutely.
So some people said that it was wonderful, and there were other people who said that they had had it done and absolutely, not regretted it, but they wished that they had done some more research. They were just looking for something to fix it, and they
Yeah,
wish that they hadn't done it, because it's permanent and it can build up. Once it happens, if you don't massage it enough, it can build up scar tissue, and it can, yeah. So there's just a lot of things that
yeah,
you have to not second guess, but you have to, continually dig deeper and try to make sure that it is the right decision for you when you don't know what the right decision is, because there's
mhm,
no like any medical history of, it's not like
yeah,
cancer where there's a bunch of
no,
statistics and studies and research grants and all these things. That's not happening for this. So you're just sort of
mhm,
flying by the seat of your pants.
yeah,
And there's people who say you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this. And if like the main thing in the support group that everyone talks about is not trying to stimulate the muscles until you before you have movement, because if you use like I don't know if you've ever been to physical therapy, but if you have any, like I used to have to get it done on my hip, they would just put like, it would kind of just like pulse it in your hip to get the
Yeah.
pain to go away.
Yep.
And people would say if you do that, you're going to immediately develop synkinesis. So that
Oh,
was the one thing that I avoided, which, you want it to move so badly that you'll do anything. So there are some people who went and did that, and they're like, that is, I wish I hadn't done that. Because now it's so much, my synkinesis is so much worse. And I have all these
oof.
involuntary movements. Like I should have just waited. Again, it's the waiting game. You're just waiting and hoping and praying that your face is just you're gonna wake up one day and you're gonna be healed.
It's so counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Or it's like you're saying, like break a bone, do like go
Hmm.
to physical therapy, build strength back, rehab, any
Right.
number of things where it's like wait, wait, wait. And a year's a
Hmm.
long time to wait
Yeah.
when you're dealing with the I'm just gonna say discomfort as a part
Hmm.
of
Right. Like I said, it was
the
the function. The function of
the
your face
function.
is what I wanted. I wanted,
Mm-hmm.
again, I just had to change so many things. It's not that I didn't have, like, I could still move, I could still walk, I wasn't paralyzed in the sense that people think of, but I was, because of
Yeah.
the things that you don't like. There's so many different parts of your body that do certain specific things, and like my face's purpose is to show my feelings, my expressions, to help me eat, to drink, to blink, to some people have hearing
Yeah.
loss with Bell's palsy because the
Oh,
nerve wraps right around your ear,
your
and they have
ear.
like tinnitus in their ears.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So
Or
she
even just
tells,
like making silly faces at your baby.
right,
Like,
which I couldn't do.
oh, oh, I'm
And I mean,
sorry.
how many like parenting things have come up for me that's like the most important thing for to your baby to learn is your facial expressions and how to express themselves. And I'm like, well, I can't do that. But
Oh,
luckily, my son is the happiest person in the world, and everyone calls
oh,
him Mr.
sweet guy.
Smiley. My dad calls him Mr. Smiley. So thank God for that, because I was like, oh my God, he's never gonna smile, and it's because of me, or he's gonna
Oh
like
no.
think it's normal to only smile halfway. But then I was like, that's insane. My pediatrician was like, Kate, I'm like, I know, but you just like you don't spiral, but
Yes.
you think of all of
And
these.
just to say it again, and this is not meant to be at all harsh towards moms because
Mom brain,
moms are
mom guilt does
amazing.
not go
Yeah,
away.
but exactly. Like I feel like every time I talk to a mom where like there's something that there is a concern about their child,
Hmm.
immediately mom's like, something I did,
It's my fault.
something I
Yep.
said, it's my fault. It's like,
Yep.
but maybe it's not. Maybe you don't need
Right.
to hold yourself hyper
Let's just,
accountable for
yep,
every
let's just
thing
take
with
a
your
breath.
child.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. So I have to get my computer charger one
Oh
second.
yeah, you're perfect. Here, I'll pause us just for a quick moment.
Oh, yep, good.
Kate and I were just talking about the events of fall 2023, where she had just started seeing a new ENT and was assessing what her options were. So, Kate, take us back in with some of the decision points around your synkinesis, Botox. What's the conversation like, and what are you thinking about for next steps?
So my ENT had said, your options basically are Botox to stop the unwanted movements
Mm-hmm.
and the DAO procedure.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, that's it. I'm screwed. I didn't spiral, but I was
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, there's gotta be something else. Like I just couldn't
Mm-hmm.
accept that synkinesis was gonna be like my eye wasn't gonna twitch, or I wasn't gonna, blink when I didn't need to be
Yeah.
blinking, basically for the
Yeah.
rest of my life. I was like, I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
can't accept that. So I
Yeah.
went back to the Facebook group and I'm looking up, somebody had posted, I don't know if it was like some sort of miracle or divine intervention, that someone posted about a place called the Center for Facial Recovery. And they are one of the most wonderful pe- group of people, specialists that I have ever met. And I have only been to one facial, like there's places in New York and on the West Coast that have, it's like a facial paralysis center. They're all over. I mean, not
Mm.
all over, but there are a lot of them. And this is the
Okay.
one that was closest to me. So it's in Maryland, which is in Rockville, which is about 4.5 hours away from me. So I call and I say,
Okay.
I have Bell's palsy. I tell them my story. I have synkinesis. And they're like, okay, well, we can get you in virtually to do your assessment. And by the way, everything's out of pocket. And I'm like, okay. I kind of figured
Okay.
that was going to be the case. But my husband's like, if it's something that'll help, we'll make it work.
Okay.
And I'm so grateful that we were able to. So I
Mhm.
call them. I had the virtual appointment January of 2024. Yes. And she says that she thinks I should come in and actually, sorry. So we were talking at the beginning of the call and she was explaining the nerve to me in more depth. She just educated me on so many things that I had read, but I had never had someone tell me to my face, this is what happened to you. And
Yeah.
it had been a year at this point.
Mhm.
So the ENT guy, Barry, was great. So I'm not discounting anything that he did, but she just, it felt like she was taking more time and care to
Yes.
explain it to me in a way that made sense to me that I can explain
Mhm.
to people. Cause I would try to say, you know, I have this, I have Bell's palsy, I have synkinesis, and they'd be like, what's that? And I just would be like, I don't even know how to explain it. But then when
Yeah.
she explained it, it made more sense. And I could
Mhm.
feel it and see it. And she would tell me, you know, oh, look, I just noticed that you tried to blink and your mouth twitched. Like she could see it over a video. And she's like, that's
Mhm.
what synkinesis is. And I was like, okay. So then she explains to me that she has a treatment that she came up with called sync needling. And I was like, that sounds terrifying, but tell me more. Because, like I said, I knew there had to be something else, not just Botox. Because I mean, insurance covered it. Botox is great, but that's putting a band aid on it, in my opinion. So she's explaining to me about the atrophied muscles and what happens and how you need to unatrophy them, which is not
Mhm.
scientific sounding, but that's basically how I understood
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that makes sense. Your muscles atrophy, they need to have, they're all basically just the fascia tissue in there is all just stuck together. It's like a spider
Mm.
web, just like a sticky web. And if you look it up like online, you can actually like, there are some actual photos of it, but it's just like
Mm.
sticky tissue that hasn't been moving and it needs to move to be able to be lubricated enough to stay open. So mine
Yeah.
were all just like closed. So she tells me about this ink needling that she came up with. So what she does is you go in and she uses an ultrasound machine on your good. The people in the Bell's palsy world say your good side and your bad side, which I
Okay.
try not to do because I'm thinking it's
Both are good sides.
positive. Right.
Yes.
So she does the ultrasound on both sides of your face and shows you the comparison of them. And it's an ultrasound. So it's something I've, of course, never seen before. I can only see skin surface level.
Yeah.
So I could see the actual stark differences between the sides of my face, which is crazy to me how different it was because they're literally both on my face, right?
Yeah.
But they were so out of sync that it was like I almost like started crying. I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is
Yeah.
nuts.
Yes.
And so she does her sync needling treatment. So basically what she does is she sticks little filament needles, like acupuncture
Mm.
needles, in your under your skin
Mhm.
and moves them around and they break up all of this tissue that is stuck, right? It was not pleasant. I will
Okay.
say that.
Yeah, that was my question.
And
Mhm.
I was severely bruised. Like it looked like I had just
Oh,
gotten sucker punched.
wow.
And she did her best to not have me bruised, but she was like, there's just so much that needed to be broken up. I had to go a little bit
Yeah.
deeper. And she tried, like I said, she tried her hardest and she went pretty easy on me the first time I went. So
Okay.
that was in February.
Mhm.
Or yes, that was in February. I went to see her. Then she suggested that I have an MRI done to see where I was at. And so I call my PCP. He calls me in an MRI. I go to do the MRI and it comes back unremarkable, which is
Mm.
good. And then I had no tumors or hi honey. My dog just got home.
Oh, Chili just come
Yes,
home?
Chili just got
Oh, hi,
home. Hi
honey.
honey, how are you? So my MRI was unremarkable. And like I said, in that I didn't have tumors, there was nothing pressing on my nerve, because that would have explained it, right? But
Mhm.
they pretty much knew that because I wasn't having any stroke-like symptoms. So she just wanted to see if it was still inflamed. And that's the MRI did show a slight enhancement of the cranial nerve, which is consistent with the Bell's palsy diagnosis. So
Okay.
I was put on another round of steroids and an antiviral. because like I said, if you can develop Bell's palsy if there is that virus that's laying dormant in your body. And since my nerve was still inflamed, they thought, well, we'll try the um antiviral to see if it
Mm-hmm.
helps any. And I guess at that point I wasn't like again, I wasn't expecting it to just go away.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it helped to know that there was, nothing actually like a tumor or anything in there. So it
Yeah.
was good, but it was also kind of like, I wish
Yeah.
something had come of that.
Yeah.
Um, but so I take all of those. And then in May, the MRI, by the way, was incredibly uncomfortable. You have to lay, if you ever have one on your head, I had to lay and I could not move at all for 2.5 hours. It was,
Whoa.
if you're claustrophobic at all, don't recommend.
Oh man,
Like,
I didn't know they took that long.
oh my God, I didn't
That's
either. They didn't tell me that. I just kept laying in there going, am I almost done? Am I almost done? Am I almost done? Am I almost done? No one was like coming over the thing saying you're doing so good. Like, do you want any music? Just
yeah.
it was a whole
Play a
experience.
podcast for you while you're sitting there for
Yeah,
two
I
and a half
couldn't
hours. Oh my
couldn't do
gosh.
anything, which in this day and age was like wild that I couldn't.
Yeah.
I mean,
Our
you're
brains are like,
always
wait,
doing
I need some
something.
sort of, yeah, I need some input. I need some
Right,
stimulation.
right.
Wow. Okay.
So that was not fun, and I don't want to do that ever again unless I
Yeah.
absolutely have to.
Yeah.
So I let my physical therapist, who is at the Center for Facial Recovery, know that. She's like, okay, well, at least we ruled that out. We, checked it off of our list because I had no
Yeah.
one before that had suggested I have an MRI. And she's not even a physician. She just said, I think you should probably have an MRI. Have you had one yet? I was like, no. She's like,
That is surprising to me
yeah.
too, just
Uh-huh.
in
Yeah.
and
Weird,
that
right?
we don't, yeah. Yeah.
But I guess maybe the only thing I could think was like they knew how invasive it would, not invasive, but how intense it would be, and no one thought it was necessary, except for,
Okay.
you know what I mean? That's the only thing I can think. That's how I'm rationalizing it in my head.
Sure.
So that was all fine. And so most people that she sees that have any facial process or Bell's palsy go and see her once a week to continually break it up so it stays broken up. Because if it
Hmm.
doesn't, then it just kind of goes back to the way it was. But I could
Yeah.
not do that. I had two small children. I lived 4.5 hours away. I had to pay to stay in a hotel because I was so tired because it's like exhausting and that you have to do, she has you smile, she has you relax. It's tiring on your face.
Yeah.
So she has me, so I have to drive all the way there by myself, and then go drive back by myself. And it's
Hmm.
just not something I could do weekly,
Yeah.
monetarily either, because my insurance
Right.
wasn't paying for it.
Yeah.
So I
All the
could go
things.
like maybe every 3 months. And in
Hmm.
between, she was giving me exercises to do and stretches. So the stretching is the most important part because you basically just want to keep the muscles moving
Hmm.
because you can't do it yourself. So she gave me all these cool little, like they would create little devices in their office. So just like two, oh, not toothpicks. What are those called? Like the tongue depressor things.
Oh
What are
yeah.
those called?
Yeah.
Well, you use them in crafts all the time. Why can't I think of it? Popsicle sticks.
Popsicle sticks. Yeah. There we go.
So they would put like a cotton ball on the end of it and wrap it in latex glove, and you could use it to kind of like, so I would stick it in my cheek and move the muscles around.
Oh
Like I would
yeah.
basically just like massage from the inside. So I just felt like I constantly had my hands in my mouth when I started seeing her. Like all I would just walk around. If I wasn't doing anything, I was just sticking my fingers in my mouth trying to stretch those muscles. And if you've ever
Yeah.
stretched a muscle that's like hasn't been moved in a while, like it doesn't feel good. And
No.
I never would have thought that that would happen with my face. I mean, I've experienced that with my
Yeah.
hamstrings, my calves, my quads, but
Yeah.
not with my cheek muscles.
Yeah.
Um, so I went and saw her in May. I did a back to back. So that one I was able to do one on a Monday. I stayed the night and came back Tuesday. And she took pictures of me before I left Monday and then before my treatment on Tuesday. And my smile was like 15-20% better. It was
Amazing.
insane. Yeah.
Yes.
Just from like loosening up those fibers because they just get so tight because they're
Yeah.
all atrophied and they're all just like stuck.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's when she was very happy with you know,
Totally.
that obviously. And same
Yeah.
because I was like, I'll be able to smile again someday.
Yeah.
Um, so then I went back and saw her in July of 2024, then again in September, and then again in October. Uh, and then since October of 2024, I haven't done anything. I haven't seen her because she had hand surgery, and then it was the holidays,
Oh,
and there was just a lot that went on, and I just didn't want to do the drive anymore.
it's a long drive.
Yeah,
That's a long haul.
yeah. But
Hmm.
I've still, of course, been looking up, I still try to do stretches. I still try to just learn as much as I can because I don't think this is the end of the road for me with this.
Hmm.
But I have come and I'm just accepting it.
Yeah.
I'm still, if there's still treatment options, I'm never gonna say no to anything. Like I'll try
Hmm.
anything once, except for a surgery that you can't reverse. That's not in that vein.
Yeah.
But I do go see a chiropractor and an applied kinesiologist who is wonderful. And I really do like feel like that helps loosen up, like to move, some things around. So I have more mobility, which is the
Hmm.
most important thing for me, because it's
Yeah.
just at this point, it's not, it is what it is, but it kind of is.
Mm.
And people don't
Yeah.
notice it. People still say like, I would never have known until you told me. And I'm like, okay, well, that's great because again, I not that I care what other people think, but you care. There's a part of you that cares like a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but it is what it is.
You mentioned this when you received the score of 9 out of 100.
Yeah.
If you were to guess, if you can self-score, where would you put yourself in terms of, or maybe it's like percentage of your recovery? Where would you put yourself?
I would probably say in my uneducated percentaging, I would say I'm about 75%. And I'm not talking about
Yeah.
just like cosmetically how I look. I'm just talking about the functionality of my face.
Yes.
So I can use a straw. I can brush my teeth without making a mess. I can blink. I don't have to use eye drops. I would have to put like gel in my eyes every night before bed. I haven't had to do that for a long, long time. So the grading score that they use is just the functionality. It has nothing to do
Just
with
functionality.
right.
Yeah.
And when I first was diagnosed, like it was so droopy that my right eye, like my eye looked bigger on this side, on my right
Yeah.
side, just because it couldn't hardly close. And my blink
Hmm.
is still not 100% even, but again, if I went back and saw my physical therapist, I don't know what score she would give me, but
Hmm.
I may go back to physical therapy just because I have so much more movement.
Yeah.
And I'm probably going to go back and see, to do the Sinca needling treatments to see, just how much more movement I can get back,
Yeah.
just to be able to like exist.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad that you have so much functionality back and that you
Yeah.
can blink and that you can use
Mm-hmm.
a straw and you can say pee and say your
Mm-hmm.
last name and
Yep.
that you're at a like I even just like how you're talking about it, I just sense this ease of
Yeah.
okay, I've come so far and now
Yep.
I can there's like ongoing recovery that will continue, but
Mm-hmm.
you have so much more
Right.
functionality back.
Right. Yeah. And like I said at the beginning, that's really all that I wanted. And again, the mental health, I've always had mental health struggles. That has
Yeah.
definitely, this did not help them, but I feel like I was able to focus that instead on, my kids and I cannot imagine what it would be, how different I would feel if I was single or if I was
Oh yeah.
work if I had like I stopped working at my husband's office because it was just so exhausting because
Hmm.
I was the office manager, but I was also in customer service. So I was customer facing. So I just
Hmm.
couldn't really I would sometimes just feel like people were just like staring at me
Staring
and
at
it was
you.
just
Yeah.
frustrating. And I felt like I had to say, I have visual paralysis. Like my brain still functionally works, but like it's just hard for me to talk. And
Hmm.
talking that much would make me tired.
Oh, I
So I
bet.
eventually just had to stop working because it was just I was on the phone constantly. I mean, all I was doing was talking. And I love to
Yeah.
talk. I love to talk to people. I love to use facial expressions. I love to communicate. I just
Mhm.
like it was the hardest part was just like thinking about the things you don't have to think like how to spell your last name. Like I couldn't speak it.
Truly.
And oh, and then this is random, but I had said our neighbor down the street had it right before me,
Hmm.
probably like a year and a half before me. We were going for a walk like a year ago, probably in September, so like six
Hmm.
months or so ago, and we saw our other neighbor at our old house, next to our old house, and he started talking, and I said, "Do you have Bell's palsy?" And he's like, yeah, I just developed it like a week ago." I was like, "Okay, what is
Huh.
going on around these here parts?
Yeah. These ear parts.
What is happening?" So I'm like trying to help him and fix him because I was like, "I've learned so much. I just like reach out to me if you need anything."
Yes,
And he
so
was
much to
old.
share.
He was older, and I think he just was kind of like, it'll fix itself. And I
Mm,
just couldn't believe that, you know, it happened to people.
yeah.
It's not like the common cold, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. That is wild.
Yeah. So
Mm,
that was random thought I just had, but I just couldn't, I just thought that was insane that it had
yeah.
happened to two people that live this
Right.
close to me. Um,
That is. Would you
but
mind sharing a little bit about the just like if, to the extent that you're comfortable, the emotional, psychological, therapeutic journey? I know that you've mentioned that you have been doing the work.
mhm.
W- Um, is that something that you would have done? Like, would you have pursued that just at this stage of your life with having two little kids, or was it like BP is like causing me to need to go talk to somebody?
I mean, I've had issues with my mental health my whole life. I mean,
Yeah.
I it's just something that I've struggled with, and I've talked to, every kind of therapist you can think of.
Yeah.
And I definitely think that I used to have really insecure thoughts when I was growing up. And
Yeah.
it was always like, well, do people think I had very bad chronic insomnia for years, and I would just like
Mm.
break down crying and say, do people think I look tired?" And it was just like this thing I couldn't explain to people how I was feeling.
Oh,
And I was
insomnia is
always
the
so
worst.
yes, like it's not like you do just take like a melatonin and you go to sleep. Like, oh no, no, it was like a
No.
chronic issue.
Oh man.
And so I would just like I would have these awful spells of not sleeping, and I would just constantly think like I can't go out in public because people will think I look tired. And then like I
Yeah.
started dating my husband, and he would be like, "No, you don't. No, you don't look tired."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now and then when this happened, that is the last thing I was thinking of. So it completely changed the way that I look at myself,
Yeah.
and I accept I don't, it's taken me a very long time. And it's been 2 years, right? It's taken me a very
Hmm.
long time to accept that this is what I look like. And it's not something that I can fix
Mm.
immediately. I can't buy something online, or I can't go see a specialist and immediately have it be fixed, because there's no like threshold for what being fixed with Bell's palsy is. There is just you, and the word recovery for Bell's palsy is also very convoluted and confusing, because someone's definition of recovered is someone else's worst nightmare.
Mm.
So that is
Okay.
another thing where that's why there's just so much gray area, because it just, and I also am convinced that it feeds off of stress and how much stress your body is under. And I have not been able, I've just never been able to control how I take stress on. No one really knows
Hmm.
how or why they react to stress the way that they do. It's like a fight or flight. It's ingrained in you from birth or before birth, or what have you. So I'm convinced that it feeds off of stress, and like my body was under just so much stress when I got it, that I think I've just been kind of trying to crawl out of this hole kind of ever
Yeah.
since then. Like that was a pivotal moment in my mental health journey, because not only did I have to focus on myself and how to get my face working again, I was also a mom and a wife,
Yes.
and I was trying to just figure out what the quote unquote right thing to do was, and I just didn't
Hmm.
know the answers. And that can be so, it can just swallow you up, like you can just get
Yeah.
completely lost in it. And so I think that really changed my outlook on my mental health and the problems, quote unquote, again, doing a lot of air quotes here. A lot of the problems that I thought I had prior to my onset were nothing compared to the mental health toll and the emotional toll that this was going to take on me.
Hmm. Yeah.
Which, and I know that people say it could be worse. I know that, like, I could have had a stroke. I could have, you know, it could have been
Yeah.
worse, but
Sure.
it doesn't come, this is not a comparative situation. That's what I
No,
don't
no,
understand when people say that. It's not, you're not comparing, it's like comparing apples to oranges. Like,
it
everything could always
is.
be worse.
It-
Everything can.
Literally. Yeah. And it could also
Everything.
be better, but we
Uh-huh.
don't,
That's not how
we
it
don't
works.
talk about that usually.
Right.
No. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing about that. And I also feel like I can't not talk about the fact that we're both millennial women and we grew up
Mm-hmm.
in an era where there was just like so much emphasis on your moral value being tied to how you look, how you
Right.
present, how pretty you are, fitting like this very prescribed beauty standard.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, like if just swimming in the water of our culture, and then you have something happens that like alters you aesthetically, if especially if you're already somebody and I'm the same way, like anxiety been a part of
Mm-hmm.
me life,
Yep.
um where it's like it just compounds that and brings up all this stuff at the same time. So I'm genuinely truly proud of you for taking this in stride the way that you have and being solution oriented while also like getting to that point where like what can I accept, how can I put things
Mm-hmm.
in perspective, how can I be grateful for the way that things are and live my best life with my family and just taking things in stride.
Right. Yes. Thank you for saying that. It has
Yeah,
been a journey, but
sounds like it.
they say they just things get put in your path, and you just, yeah, it really just shifts your whole everything.
It does. It
And
does.
it's not that I'm, giving up by accepting it. I definitely don't see it that way.
Oh
But,
no.
at some point, it's like like, it's especially with the cost. I mean, the treatments and the time and the driving and the I have to find someone to watch the kids if they're not at school, or I just am kind of, at this current moment, I'm just sort of enjoying not worrying about it, because I'm at a point where, like you said, I can do the minimal things, and I'm okay. But there are things that I wish that are better. Like, when I get stressed, my eye blink gets so tremendously worse.
Mm,
So I can't, it's just like little things like that. So I know now that if I'm having trouble blinking, that I'm stressed or I'm tired. I'm like a baby. So, like, if I'm
mm-hmm.
tired, I'm hungry, I'm,
Yeah,
then
yeah, all
then
the
this is
things.
going to happen.
Yeah.
So I try to listen. I'm definitely much more in tune with my body now than I was, like, prior to my pregnancies. I was just like living my best life. I was young, I was, healthy. I worked out all the time. And
Yeah.
now, I don't hold these high expectations of myself, because if I'm like, I wake up and I'm like, I should be doing XYZ today, but my body is telling me that I just don't think that's a good idea today, then I'm okay with listening to that. Whereas before, I would have just berated myself, like, oh my God, you have to work out, you have to clean the
Yes.
entire house, you have to do this, this, and this. But if my body's just like, no, you're tapped out, you need a break, you need a mental mentee b, just take it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
that's the one. And I know this is a question you're going to ask, and so I'll wait until you get there. But
Okay.
the it's yeah, I've learned a lot, and the main
Yeah.
thing is just to listen to my body, because it's your body's going to tell you what you need.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm reading this book right now. This is not a plug for this book, but it's called Reclaiming Body Trust.
Oh, yay, I love those books.
I'm
I feel
reading
like
that
I've
as
heard of that.
yeah, yeah. And like she quotes like Kristen Neff and Tara Brock and whoever
Nice.
wrote The Body Is Not an Apology. But I'm actually like this is like personal work for me too, where it's like getting to this place of okay, my body needs a rest day. My
Yeah.
Fitbit is telling me I need a rest day.
Yes.
I can take the rest day. And I feel
Yes.
again, I just do feel like that as millennial women and people older than us too, but really conditioned of like, what
Yep.
does that say about you if you're gonna step
Right.
away? Like what
Right.
does that mean? You're not gonna it's like but
You
there's
gotta
such
hustle. You gotta
yeah, you gotta
hustle.
hustle because if you hustle, like there's more worth there, and
Mm,
you're yeah, that
it's
could be a whole.
toxic. It's so toxic. Oh
It is
yes.
so toxic. It is so harmful, and so
Yep.
I like see in you some of the stuff
Mm-hmm.
that I'm also working on, where it's like, well,
Mm-hmm.
what if I like question things and
Mm-hmm.
like just listen to the
Mm-hmm.
inner wisdom that we were all born with, that we get
Yeah.
conditioned to ignore.
Yep.
So anyway,
Yes.
just a
Nope.
little putting that out there.
It's totally valid and totally
Yeah.
right. The body, there's another one I've read called The Body Keeps the Score. Have you heard of
Oh
that?
yes. Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
I think I listened to it on Audible probably 3 times. It's
Yeah.
fascinating.
That's a really yeah, I that was one of the it's been years since I read it, but that when I
Yep.
started working with my therapist in
Mm-hmm.
2015, she was like I have PTSD, and she was like,
Mm-hmm.
check this book out.
You're
There's a
just
lot of
holding
wisdom
on
here.
to it.
Yep,
Yep.
exactly. In all different places.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, yeah.
Truly.
Oh, well, this is a great conversation, Kate. Is there anything else you want to add before we get into our final show questions?
I don't think so. I think I've
Okay.
talked enough.
Well, it's been great learning from you, and
Yes.
thank you for sharing, and especially knowing that like that it is fatiguing.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so question number one, Kate. If you could go back to right before the onset of Bell's palsy, what would you say to that younger version of yourself?
I think I would say that you are the only one who knows your story
Yeah.
and to just continuously and constantly advocate for yourself, no
Hmm.
matter what it takes. You know yourself best, and no one can tell you what you should be doing or feeling. It's just
Hmm.
you. The only person who can tell your story is the best is you. So that is something I would tell
Absolutely.
myself to just remember. And it's not a solution for all of my
Hmm.
problems. They're not problems, they're just hiccups or bumps in the road.
Yeah.
But that is something that I would definitely just tell my younger self to remind myself of
Yeah.
because it's rough. It's rough
Yeah.
out there.
It is. It is. Well, it's the second question. What tool or resource has been most helpful in navigating your experience?
Um, I would say the Facebook group that I'm in, honestly.
Love.
It's just the people there are so kind and educational, and they share their stories. People share success stories, people share what doesn't work. And it can be kind of overwhelming because there's so many people in it, and everyone's at different stages of their
Mm,
life, in different stages of their condition and their paralysis and their synkinesis. But it's just really been it's that's where I heard about the Center for Facial Recovery, and I probably, like I said, just listening to my own intuition. I mean, sometimes I'm wrong, and that's fine. I always say I'll try. Like I said, I'll try anything once.
hmm.
So if I go try a treatment and I don't think it works for me, like the acupuncture that I did for a little bit, I didn't think it was working for me, and the practitioner wasn't super confident, so I tried it, and that was it. But some other
Yeah.
people swear by acupuncture that it
Yeah.
cured them, and
Yeah.
that's great. Um, but just being open-minded and trying new things and doing my own homework on
Hmm.
things I think would work and what's within my bounds is, Google can be a scary place.
Hmm.
So I would think that, probably the Facebook group, because that's where I learned that I had to go see an ENT instead of a neurosurgeon or a
Yeah.
neurologist, sorry. But yeah, I mean, and sharing my story on Instagram. Like I said, I was put in touch with a few people who had suggested a few things. So just being honest and vulnerable too is a good resource, I guess.
Yes.
Just the human experience is
Yeah,
tough.
it is. Those are great. Love a community building opportunity, and
We
I'm so
loved
glad that
it.
you've had that group. If anyone is relating to your story, what would you say to them?
I would say that you are, like we talked about, you are not,
Hmm.
your worth is not in your looks, it is in who
Hmm.
you are and how you treat people.
Yeah.
And um, just you can see the beauty in the small things, because like I said, those small
Yes.
movements that I had were such a big deal for me. And that is something that, and just be vulnerable and be honest as much as your body and your mind and your beliefs want you to be. But it's just important to be open about your struggles. And like I said, I've had mental health struggles. You've had them. It's really
Absolutely.
taboo to talk about that kind of thing.
Hmm.
But talking about things is so much, it's so cathartic. And that's why I'm so
Yes.
glad that you do this, because it
Oh,
brings up, things that I had not suppressed, but that I had forgotten about that didn't work, or making me more grateful to people that have helped me.
yeah.
Um, like my husband who just walked in, but he's not listening.
Hi, Taylor.
But so that is what I would say to someone relating,
Yeah.
and just,
Yeah.
take advice, but take it with a grain of salt, I guess.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of things that people say, oh, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. And it's just, for some people, that's not an option.
Yeah.
And that shouldn't make
Yeah.
you feel bad or like you're never going to quote unquote recover, because your body is your body, and that's
Yeah.
what you're going to do.
I just appreciate how you've come home to this like inner knowing of
Mm-hmm.
I can only do the next right thing. I can only do what's right for me and my family, and trusting that. And I think
Yeah.
that that's such a powerful place to be when we sometimes it takes really hard things
Yes.
to get there.
Yeah. Oh, it's been an absolute struggle. Don't get me wrong. I've
Absolutely.
had nights where
Oh
I've
yeah.
cried. I've just been like, I've thrown pity parties. I mean,
Yeah.
you just get to a point where you just like can't, handle it. And I think that's a normal thing, a healthy thing, to just let it
Yes.
out.
Yes.
And to just, again, I'm still learning and growing just like everybody is.
Right.
I just have a different, not, I just have a different perspective, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not like it's made me, I'm not like vying for sainthood by any means here, but I'm trying, and
Yeah.
it's something I'm getting better at, just accepting
Mm.
this is how things are. But I'm still working towards trying to find new treatments, but I'm not going to like bend over backwards and put
Yeah.
anybody. Yeah.
And it's not consuming you. It's like
Right.
I'm aware. It's like starkly different from where
Mm-hmm.
you were after
Right.
the onset, where you're like,
Right.
I'm in Google, I'm like in it. You're just, I'm aware, I'm in the driver's seat, and I'm gonna take the next right
Right.
action based on what I need.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And the people that are close to you will follow your lead, and
Hmm.
just support you in any way that they know how. Because
Absolutely.
if, especially like I said, if the more you talk about it, the more people can relate, even though they've never been through
Totally.
it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So,
Well, Kate, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, sharing your perspective and your experience. It's just been so great learning from you and with you. Just can't say thank you enough. And listeners, we also want to thank you for tuning in and also learning from Kate and her experience. If you don't already, please follow Uniquely Qualified on Spotify and on Instagram, where we are Uniquely Qualified Pod. We will hopefully also be expanding to a couple new platforms soon, so stay tuned for that announcement. And if you know somebody who has Bell's palsy or loves somebody with Bell's palsy, maybe consider sharing this episode with them. You never know how Kate's story might help somebody else. And if you yourself have overcome a challenge and Kate has inspired you to share your story, please feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. Again, Uniquely Qualified Pod. If you direct message me, I'd love to connect with you and amplify your voice. And no matter what,
absolutely.
please remember that we are all uniquely qualified.